Costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Goodwood Castle in North Wales was once envisaged as a royal palace for Wales, but after years of neglect became a ruin. A fresh programme of conservation work, supported by the National Lottery, aims to restore it. Lady Marina Cochrane, whose family last lived in the castle in 1924, joins me now. It's so lovely to see you. Tell me about your family's connection to the castle.
Of course, thanks for having me, Michael. So my great-great-grandmother, Winifred Cochrane, used to live in the house up until 1924, and she didn't pass it on to my family, actually. She passed it on to the royal family and, alternatively, the Church of Wales. So as a family now, it's been quite interesting coming onto the project. So I'm helping Mark Baker, the historian and custodian of Greek Castle, who I believe you've met, restore it now into sort of its rightful space and hopefully into a museum. So we're going to relocate some of the art collection that was once there.
You talked about the staircase, for example.
Yes.
Can that, I mean, that must have been a glorious piece, must be hideously expensive.
Yeah.
Can we expect that to be restored in due course?
I hope so, to some extent. Right now, if we can't find stuff at auction, we'll be able to replicate it somehow with copies and other materials. That will be hopefully part of my job as well, to sort of really find other ways that we can replicate what the house really was before.
You talked about a collection in the context of Mark Baker. What is the collection and where is the collection? So,
my great-great-grandmother was an amazing Victorian lady for her era. She collected a lot of female artists.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A really important thing about GB News, and it's brought something completely different to the landscape.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, the reality is that most British journalists are afraid. That's not GB News.
Journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
We're here to talk about things in a way that have never been broadcast on British airways before.
Do not miss a moment on GB News.
The #1 news channel in the country.
Very, very good afternoon to you and a happy Monday. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Moss and Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live across the UK. All the very latest and the greatest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. We've got a cracking show lined up for you today, and here's what's on your menu. Counter-terror police are leading the investigation into an anti-Semitic firebomb attack in Golders Green, which is now feared to be orchestrated by Iran. Our man Mark White will be live from the scene. And during today's show, Keir Starmer will later today chair an emergency Cobra meeting on the war in Iran. But with Donald Trump calling all of the shots, is there any point? Well, seriously, will a strongly worded statement from Foreign Secretary David Lammy make a blind bit of difference? We'll be live from Downing Street. And Donald Trump has cancelled his 48-hour deadline to bomb Iran's power networks, welcoming a 5-day window of calm in the Iran war.
We just spoke to Israel a little while ago. I think they'll be very happy. This will be peace for Israel, long-term peace, guaranteed peace.
In today's show, we're going to comment updates from the Defence Secretary. Can Tehran really reach Britain with its intercontinental ballistic missiles? And will British warships make it to Cyprus before the war ends? And a best-selling novelist has blasted a women's intimate health charity as absolutely ridiculous after they hired a trans woman. That's a biological man. The writer Amanda Craig claimed that promoting the biological male, Steph Richards, as an expert on endometriosis was about as ridiculous as someone purporting to speak for black people when they're actually white. Here's the question: why not simply hire a woman? Well, to show it's a pleasure to have your company. We have a very, very busy schedule ahead of us today. Statements from the Commons on the war in Iran from the Defence Secretary. We're expecting a statement perhaps from Shabana Mahmood on the situation in Golders Green. Definitely one from Dan Jarvis on that matter. What an astonishing situation. It was 9 years ago yesterday we had the terror attack on Westminster Bridge. It was 5 years ago yesterday that the Batley Grammar School teacher went into hiding. And here we are again. Jewish charity ambulances firebombed with an Iranian proxy unit taking the credit for this grotesque anti-Semitic attack. How many more things need to happen in this country before we wake up and smell the coffee? And the stench is bad. The stench of hypocrisy, the stench of political correctness, tens and tens of millions pumped out to protect mosques. But the actual problem is protecting the Jewish community, protecting their safety. They fear it's the darkest time since the 1930s. Our political class seem to be almost impotent. Why? Why are they silent on this? It's all, we will be locking arms together, sing Kumbaya and hope it all goes away. What absolute nonsense. We need action and we need it now. We need to clamp down on the Islamist cancer on British soil before another death comes our way. Get in touch, GBNews.com/your say. You scan the QR code on your screens now. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Bethany Elsey.
A really important thing about GB News, and it's brought something completely different to the landscape.
The mainstream is
Martin, thank you. Good afternoon. Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 3 minutes past 3. Donald Trump has postponed planned US strikes on Iranian power plants after what he calls very productive talks on ending the war. The US president says military action will be paused for 5 days, depending on progress in ongoing discussions aimed at a complete resolution of the conflict. Markets have reacted sharply, with oil prices falling by as much as 13% in what economists describe as an extraordinary shift. And in the last few moments, Sir Keir Starmer has welcomed the talks between the two sides and stressed the importance of a swift resolution to the conflict.
I welcome the talks reported between the US and Iran. And to be clear with the committee, the UK were aware that was happening, and the immediate priority has to be a swift resolution of the conflict and delivering a negotiated agreement which puts tough conditions on Iran, particularly in relation to nuclear weapons.
Counter-terror police are now leading the investigation into an anti-Semitic arson attack in North London. As a manhunt continues for 3 suspects, detectives are analysing CCTV, which appears to show hooded figures pouring liquid over ambulances before setting them alight and fleeing the scene. The fleet belonged to a Jewish community service in Golders Green. Loud explosions were reported as oxygen gas cylinders ignited. Police are also examining an online claim of responsibility but can't yet verify it. The attack is being treated as a hate crime, though not formally declared terror-related. The Prime Minister says anti-Semitism has no place in society.
This is a horrific anti-Semitic attack. And of course, my thoughts, I think all of our thoughts, will be with those in the vicinity, the residents who are understandably very concerned, a Jewish community across the country deeply concerned. I've already been in touch with community leaders this morning and will continue to do so during the day. But anti-Semitism has no place in our society, and it's really important that we all stand together at a moment like this.
But the campaigner against anti-Semitism, Gideon Falter, says the government response is not enough.
Unfortunately, the Jewish community is not impressed anymore by politicians turning up and saying how we all stand together and the government's going to do everything in their power. We've now had successive governments tolerating everything from hate marches to hate preachers and doing absolutely nothing about it. The government has on its hands a situation in which the tolerant, decent Britain that we all thought we knew has turned into a Britain where people turn up in the dead of night and burn ambulances down to the ground. This was a community ambulance service dedicated to bringing life-saving help to people of all faiths and none. And this is what has happened to it.
In New York, a passenger plane has crashed into a fire engine, killing the pilot and co-pilot. The aircraft was carrying 76 people, with more than 40 being taken to hospital. Some remain in a serious condition. The flight had arrived at New York's LaGuardia Airport shortly before the collision. The airport is now closed, with all flights cancelled until at least 6 p.m. UK time. And authorities are bracing for a surge in small boat crossings in the English Channel as calmer weather sets in. Nearly 600 migrants have arrived in the UK in the past 5 days, with more expected. The government is preparing to hand France a further £500 million to help tackle the crisis, as ministers push for a tougher deal to stop more boats leaving the coast. Talks between the UK and France are entering a critical phase, with the current agreement due to expire next week. Those are your latest news headlines. Let's get back to Martin. Thank you.
Turn to today's breaking news that counter-terror police are now leading the investigation into an anti-Semitic firebomb attack feared to have been orchestrated by Iran. 4 ambulances were set alight outside a synagogue in Golders Green in North London. And since then, the Prime Minister has met with Jewish leaders in Downing Street. Well, our Homeland Security editor, Mark White, joins us now live from Golders Green. Mark White, incredibly concerning situation. I was saying earlier on, it was only 9 years ago yesterday, the Westminster Bridge terror attack. 5 years ago yesterday, the Batley Grammar School teacher forced into hiding. Here we go again, the Iran war going on. We were saying how many times, how long before perhaps some trouble comes to our shore. Once again, the Jewish community have been targeted. It's grotesque, it's abhorrent. We hear the same old things. Oh, let's all join and stand strong together. What's been done? Who's responsible? Has anybody been nicked yet?
Well, I mean, in terms of what's been done, we know that 3 men were involved in pouring accelerant over these ambulances before then setting them ablaze. Luckily, even though there were multiple explosions from the oxygen cylinders in the backs of the ambulances, it caused quite a bit of damage to surrounding buildings in terms of windows that were blown out. No one was injured, but of course lots of people very shocked, woken from their sleep to the sound of these explosions, and then of course seeing the huge fire that it took several hours for London Fire Brigade to bring under control. So those 3 suspects are at large at the moment. The police are appealing for any information that might bring them to justice. There is a manhunt underway for them, and in the meantime they say that they're investigating these reports, a claim of responsibility by a group that says it's linked to the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran. That is being investigated. And of course now this voluntary ambulance service, a charitable organisation that really is so valuable to this community, and not just to the Jewish members of this community, but anyone in this community, this ambulance service will respond to. They are, for the moment at least, without ambulances. We heard from the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, a little earlier as he visited the site.
Those responsible for this attack must know that the Jewish community will not face up to this hatred alone. The whole country will stand with them. And when we think about some of the recent anti-Semitic attacks we've seen in this country, now is a time for all decent-minded people to stand up, to speak up with one voice, that we will stand with the Jewish community here and across the country in confronting this vile anti-Semitism.
And West Streeting confirmed that the NHS and indeed St John's Ambulance Service will donate ambulances on a loan basis to this charitable organisation until it can get new ambulances for themselves. The government has said it will pay for those replacement ambulances. And all day we've had multiple people come here to express their shock and horror and solidarity with the local community. We have not had the London Mayor here though. However, just in the last hour or so, we have had an on-camera statement from Sadiq Khan.
Dark day for London. Jewish Londoners who volunteer to provide a service for all Londoners have been attacked for no other reason than because they are Jewish. This is an anti-Semitic hate crime, and it's really important for all of us to show allyship to the Jewish community.
But many people here have been telling me that they are not surprised, certainly shocked by the ferocity of this attack last night, but not surprised that it's happened. And they have a direct correlation between the rise in anti-Semitism and these hate marches that have been taking place so regularly and supported by the likes of Sadiq Khan, where often we hear these anti-Semitic chants, and not enough in the eyes of many in this community is done to bring the people involved in those anti-Semitic chants to justice. And they see that direct correlation here. In fact, I was speaking to Gideon Falter from the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, and he says that the emollient words that we're getting from politicians showing up here, in the case of Sadiq Khan not showing up here, but still with these emollient words, that is not enough, they say. They need action now. This is what Gideon Falter said.
Unfortunately, the Jewish community is not impressed anymore by politicians turning up and saying how we all stand together and the government's going to do everything in their power. We've now had successive governments tolerating everything from hate marches to hate preachers and doing absolutely nothing about it. The government has on its hands a situation in which the tolerant, decent Britain that we all thought we knew has turned into a Britain where people turn up in the dead of night and burn ambulances down to the ground. This was a community ambulance service dedicated to bringing life-saving help to people of all faiths and none, and this is what has happened to it.
Well, as I say, many people in this community say they will continue to be very wary and not surprised, although obviously shocked, when incidents like this happen, if they happen in future. And they say that there is always the risk until the government, until the authorities get tougher with those who spew their vile hatred towards the Jewish community and sometimes enact that in very violent ways.
Well, White, thank you for an update. An incredibly concerning situation there from Golders Green. Thank you for joining us on the show. Now, I'm delighted now to be joined by the Jewish community leader, Levi Shapiro. Levi, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Although, once again, I have to say it's under deeply inauspicious and depressing circumstances we're having this conversation. Let me start with a basic question. Mike Freer, who was the Member of Parliament for Golders Green, was forced to resign from his job when after his office suffered an arson attack in the same constituency in March 2024. In July 2024, Muslim activists drove through Golders Green demanding Jewish women be raped. Are you remotely surprised that today we're witnessing the aftermath of another grotesque, targeted act of anti-Semitism in Golders Green? Because I'm not.
No, absolutely. It's good to be back here. Sadly, under very difficult circumstances again. What happened yesterday in the community is a horrific attack. And to your point, no, we're not surprised whatsoever. We're not surprised to the slightest, in fact, because if you look back a minute and you look at the wider context of what's been happening here, this is the perfect recipe on how these incidents happen. These vile anti-Semitic attacks will only continue to happen as a result of the way the government has responded. And you've heard from all the different commentators in the past couple of hours and members of the community who've been criticizing the government's very weak response over the last 2 years in terms of the rise in anti-Semitism. And I want to point out something which is really important, because a very senior member of the community made me aware of this, that violent anti-Semitic attacks against Jewish people has quadrupled under the Starmer leadership. And this is something that we've not spoken enough about in the last couple of months, in the rise in anti-Semitism. That anti-Semitism used to be could be on social media, where people could spout their hate against Jewish people. But they've taken it a step further, where they physically attack Jewish infrastructure, Jewish people on the streets, and in this case, a Jewish ambulance service, which is designed to help and save lives of people from all walks of life. And that's something which is unacceptable.
Can I put another point to you, Levi? And it's this. There's been an additional £10 million put towards the security of mosques recently. The total now is £40 million. The equivalent funding to synagogues is half of that. It's £20 million. And this group claiming credit for this, and shame on them, claiming credit for this arson attack, Harakat Ashab al-Yamin al-Islamiyah. They've also called for attacks on synagogues and schools across all of Europe. There seems to me to be a disproportionate response to a very real threat towards the Jewish community, whereas politicians seem to fawn over themselves in protecting the Muslim community. Am I being cynical?
No, you're not, unfortunately. The reality is that politicians are very lazy. I'm going to say this as it is, and this is what the sense I'm getting from the community as a member in the community. Politicians are very lazy to deal with anti-Semitism, and it's for a variety of different reasons. And God forbid if they don't deal with different hate incidents from different faith groups or cultures. They'll be there straight away, providing all the assistance, financial support, whatever the community requests. They'll always be there to help them. The Jewish community hasn't seen that level of response in incidents affecting our community. It's always the same people coming out, putting out all those fancy posts on social media, how shocked they are and how worried they are for our safety. But come on, if you're really concerned about the Jewish people, then roll up your sleeves and get to work. We can give you a list of stuff, what you could do to help out our community. Putting out social media posts doesn't help anyone, and it's just something that they can do for their own comfortability. But certainly, we, the Jewish people, we're not stupid. We were not born yesterday. You're lazy and they're not able to help our community, or they're just declining to support our community.
Levi Shapiro, that brings me neatly to my final question. And please, be as honest as you'd like to be.
Sure.
What's your reaction to the fact that the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, didn't even bother to come to Golders Green today?
Have you seen his 30-second recorded message? That answers you everything you need to know about Sadiq Khan's relation, unfortunately, with the Jewish community. I did have a very different understanding of him a couple of years ago, but as we went on as he continued his mayoralty, it became very clear that I think he's not a friend of our community. He's failed to visit our community on multiple occasions. He's been invited to the Jewish community over the past 9 years on many times. The only time he did visit our community was when he ran on his first election for his mayoralty. That was the only time he had a very brief visit to our community. Other than that, he's failed to meet and visit our community. I'm sure he can come running now, but I think it's a little too late, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, I think our views are very clear, and I think I share this view with along many people in my community.
Levi Shapiro, honestly, I just feel breathless. I just feel, we're at this sort of horrible place in society. I'm not Jewish. I want to send my profound love to you and your community. I just sometimes despair about what our country is becoming. Please, in some small token, can you accept my support and that of our viewers at what is yet again another truly dark moment? I wish we could talk about something positive one time. Levi, I really wish we could have a positive conversation. I really do, mate.
No, thank you so much, and I can tell you that I will share this. I'll share your thoughts with our community. Just to make it clear, my views are expressed on the points that I'm hearing from people in the community. I'm not representing here any official representative body, but I'm just sharing the views, which is widely known. It's not a secret across the Jewish community. But thank you so much for your help and for your support.
It's almost irrelevant, but if it makes some tiny difference, then, you know, that's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your time today. And peace to you. Levi Shapiro, Jewish community leader there in London. Now then, Chris Hope, you got some breaking news for us, I believe, on the liaison committee. Keir Starmer speaking at that.
Yes, before I come to that, though, I've been in touch with Sadiq Khan's office while we've been talking on air. Now, his office say to me that he has been in touch with the CST, the Community Security Trust CEO. They look after the security of synagogues. Also in constant contact with the police. There's a statement from Sadiq Khan. His thoughts are with all of London's Jewish community following this heinous attack. Anti-Semitism, he says, has no place in our society. All Londoners must stand together against this kind of hatred and intimidation. Patrols are being stepped up, he says, in the area to reassure the local community, but it hasn't been there. We have seen, of course, West Street in there earlier. Tory MPs were there, Priti Patel and also Chris Philp.
If ambulances had been set fire to outside a mosque, do you think Sadiq Khan would have sent a video message? I know I'm getting you to... this is conjecture. We all know the answer. Levi Shapiro there, I think, was perfectly eloquent. There's a disproportionate and frankly feeble response, and anti-Semitism is getting totally out of control. How soon will it be before somebody else is murdered? That's where we're getting to.
Well, it is really serious. There was a briefing at lunchtime today with members of the Jewish community, with the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. We were told at the meeting outside, Michael Uyghur, who's the Chief Executive of the Board of Deputies of British Jews, he says we should feel safe but anxious. Resilience is the key word I would use to describe how we are at the moment. None of us feel safe, as we did 5 years ago. That's clearly a decline. Keith Black, the chair of the Jewish Leadership Council, he says Jews don't feel safe as they should, Martin. We saw Iranians arrested 2 weeks ago for surveying Jewish establishments, and we see today, and we don't know what's around the corner. That concern about what comes next. Now, so Keir Starmer gets this. He's worried about it. The NHS is, I was told earlier by Number 10, giving 4 replacement ambulances to this group, which looks after Jewish communities in Golders Green. Number 10 says they're doing everything they can to provide security to Jewish schools, and attacks like these are designed to strike terror into the hearts of our communities.
We need security at schools, Chris. It's utterly heartbreaking. That's the country we're in now. Security at schools. Just pause on that.
I know it is. And Keir Starmer's told this.
Just devastating.
While we've been speaking, the PM is in front of the liaison committee in the House of Commons. He's told them this: the idea that ambulances that save lives, ambulances, could be considered a target is simply horrendous. And he says the whole Jewish community across the country must know this is not an isolated incident, and the rise of anti-Semitism hatred is there for all to see. Now, also at this anti-Semitism session, he's been talking more about this Cobra meeting coming up shortly. There's some breaking news from that session, which I can bring you now, Martin. The government's announced it's looking at giving the Competition and Markets Authority further teeth, the PM says, so it can better protect consumers from being ripped off. The CMA, so ensure that maybe at the petrol pump people aren't being ripped off by different petrol stations, or maybe it might be comparing energy suppliers. But here's a flavour of what the PM's been saying to MPs in the past half an hour.
We're holding a Cobra this afternoon on the economic impact, because my strong sense is that most people are very anxious and concerned at what they see on their television screens in terms of the conflict and the fear of escalation. But they're also very concerned about the impact it might have on them and their families, and that's what we will be absolutely focusing on this afternoon.
There we are. That's the PM there saying how important the cost of living crisis is to him. He gets that. Very rare to have a Cobra meeting, a meeting where, frankly, the government keeps us all safe with screens from around the world beaming in images, but instead they're discussing the cost of living crisis with the Governor of the Bank of England and senior people in government.
Well, 60 pence in every pound on petrol is tax. It's fuel duty or VAT. The government could cut that. Let's see what happens. Chris Hope, you're our very own coiled Cobra. Always a pleasure to have you in the studio. Thank you very much indeed. Still to come, Keir Starmer will later on today chair that emergency Cobra meeting on the war in Iran after speaking to MPs at the liaison committee, as Chris Hope just explained. But will it make a blind bit of difference? That's next on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversations.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the late edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, late edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless.
I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back now. In under 2 hours' time, Keir Starmer will chair an emergency Cobra meeting amid the Iran war crisis. Now, this comes, of course, after he dodged whether Iran can hit Britain with missiles as he pleaded for Donald Trump to once again de-escalate the war.
Carry out assessments all the time in order to keep us safe, and there's no assessment that we're being targeted in that way at all. But of course it's my job to ensure that British interests, British lives are always uppermost in my mind. Today we're looking at the economic impact, and I am asking for every lever that's available to the government to deal with the cost of living to be discussed at Cobra. Hence we've got the Bank of England and others there. But I want to make sure that when it comes to the cost of living, we're doing everything we possibly can at a very difficult period like this.
Cut fuel duty, mate. We could do that this afternoon. That might help. But meanwhile, Donald Trump has declared a 5-day pause on military strikes against Iran. And it's after holding very good conversations about ending hostilities in the Middle East. Well, let's now speak with the former British Army officer, James Sunderland. James, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. We didn't seem to get an answer on whether Britain was within the reach of Tehran, of intercontinental ballistic missiles. Perhaps their bad guys are already here. They're firebombing ambulances in Golders Green. I digress. What are you expecting out of this Cobra meeting today? And we can't even seem to get our ships to the conflict on time. At this rate, the war might be over before Britain turns up.
Well, good afternoon, Martin. There's lots in that question. Firstly, in terms of the missiles, the technology exists to launch an intercontinental ballistic missile that far. So if you look at what North Korea's got, look at what China's got, Iran, Russia, that technology exists. So to dismiss it as not being relevant, I'm afraid, is not being very prudent. I'd like to see Cobra discussing that a lot more. I suspect that lots of that information is classified. You know, the question wouldn't be answered yesterday by the minister about how far short the missile was from the Chagos Islands. So I think there is clearly a defence element to the Cobra this afternoon. And in terms of what else we need to discuss this afternoon, you're absolutely right. You know, why are we giving the Consumer and Markets Authority any teeth, to put it earlier, when we can just cut tax? And in my humble view, the government has all of the levers it needs to see us through this crisis.
Because the whole thing is, right, it's like 6 pence in every pound is what the retailer has as a margin. Everything else is production, refining. The lion's share is the Exchequer. It's Rachel Reeves. It's Sir Keir Starmer. It's Ed Miliband. That the Labour Party are taking more money out of petrol than any retailer, yet they're trying to make the retailer the bad guy. Why can't we have some political honesty and just say, do you know what? We appreciate you going through a hard time. We're going to cut fuel to help your lives easier. That could really help, could it not?
Absolutely right. It's a complete no-brainer for me. You know, the Conservatives helped the consumers, the British public, during the last major fuel crisis, 2022. Liz Truss was obviously the Prime Minister at the time. What can't we have the same now? And all the government's got to do is make a decision in the House this afternoon, or announce it in the House, that we're cutting fuel duty. It's a lever they've got. They can do it straight away. But of course, Labour have got us into such a mess in terms of the fiscal backdrop, in terms of the national debt, in terms of what things are costing at the moment, the cost of living, that the last thing they want to do is to take money out from the Treasury. They want to keep taxes high. They need to keep taxes high to pay off the national debt. But importantly, and this is really, really, really important, actually, Trump's tweet this afternoon could yet get Starmer out of jail in terms of the fuel prices now falling, in terms of the stock market now rising. It may just be that if there are negotiations happening between Trump and the Iranians right now, this could be the best possible news for Labour in terms of what they're going to do about it. My sense is they'll do nothing.
OK, well, let's see what happens at that Cobra meeting. Hopefully it's more productive than the Cobra meetings I have down at my local curry house. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. Former British Army officer James Sunderland, thank you for your expertise as ever. Now, lots more still to come between now and 4 p.m, including a Labour-run Liverpool City Council has claimed it is wrong to claim that migrants come from cultures that don't respect women. I've got the data that blow that argument out of the water. That's next.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A cloudy afternoon to come for many of us. It's going to be mild overnight, particularly compared to recently, as rain and cloud moves in from the north and west. You can see this area of low pressure up to the north and west of the UK. That'll be pulling in these weather fronts, so rain is on the way, particularly for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland through this evening. Elsewhere, it should remain dry through much of this evening and much of the night, in fact, though the rain will creep in to parts of northwestern England, parts of Wales as well by tomorrow morning. It's relatively light at first, but it will get heavier. As I said, with all that cloud moving in, it's going to be a mild start to the day on Tuesday. Plenty of clear skies across the far north and east of Scotland, but for most of us, it's going to be a cloudy start to the day. The winds will also strengthen from the west across parts of Scotland, bringing in some blustery showers of rain, hail and some hill snow. It is turning colder through the rest of this week, but still a mild start on Tuesday. Temperatures 10 or 11 degrees. Lots of cloud around, perhaps perhaps some mist and fog across eastern areas. That should clear quite quickly, though, by Tuesday morning. Now, that rain across parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and northwestern England intensifies through Tuesday morning, so it will be a very damp afternoon across these areas, particularly areas to the west of the Pennines, the high ground in North Wales as well, seeing the heaviest rainfall. Some intense showers of hail and rain across northern areas of Scotland as well. Here it will be a much colder day, still relatively mild in the south and east, but very little sunshine. And that rain and those brisk winds sweep southeastwards through tomorrow evening, bringing a spell of very unsettled weather, in fact. And then it turns widely more unsettled, colder as well for a time, but it does look like the drier and brighter weather returns for the weekend.
Thank you to our global community for watching and listening to GB News. We're not only the #1 news channel in Britain, we're chosen by you around the world.
This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. In Blackburn with Darwin, all lanes on the M65 westbound entry slip at Junction 5 are closed for emergency barrier repairs. In Rotherham, the M18 northbound between the M1 and Junction 1 is shut for roadworks. Drivers in Nottinghamshire should expect delays on the M1 northbound between Junctions 26 and 28, with 3 of 4 lanes affected. In Telford and Wrekin, the M54 westbound faces closures between Junction 6 and 7 for repairs, leaving 1 lane open. Cambridgeshire's A14 eastbound between Junctions 33 and 35 is undergoing horticultural work, with 1 lane closed. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:37. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a Labour-run Liverpool City Council has claimed it's wrong to claim that migrants come from cultures that don't respect women. And that's despite a Freedom of Information request from the Centre for Migration Control, exclusively seen by us here at GB News. Thank you, Rob Bates, for that. That found that 1 in 5 registered sex offenders in the Merseyside region are actually foreign nationals. Now, that's double the average compared to the population as a whole. Now, of those nationalities, of those sex offenders, 27 are Polish, 23 are Romanian, 15 are Indian, and 9 are Afghanistani, Nigerian, Iraqi, Iranian, and Sri Lankan. Well, joining me now to discuss this is the Reform Council for Epping, and that's... No, we're going to Catherine Forster here in the studio. Catherine Forster, this is a fascinating story because on the one hand, Liverpool City Council are saying that it is wrong to claim that migrants come from cultures that don't respect women. Furthermore, their online Mythbuster says that blaming foreign cultures for violence against women and girls reinforces harmful stereotypes. There are no causal links between asylum seeker populations and increased levels of violence against women and girls. And yet when you look at the actual data, this is the Merseyside Police's own data, compared to the census data, the reality is that you are more than twice as likely to be sexually assaulted by a foreign national as opposed to the British population. Is this council in denial of reality? Are they woke or just clearly ignorant?
Well, you might say all of those, and it reminds me a bit of when we talk about the grooming gang scandal and people say, but hang on a minute, most crimes that men commit against women in this country are committed by white men. Well, yes. Of course there are, because there are far more white men in this country than any other group. But yet we know with grooming gangs particularly, yes, of course, not all grooming gangs come from a sort of British Pakistani background, but there is a very good chunk of those that do. And we also know that for many years, local community leaders, social workers, police officers and so on and so forth looked the other way because they did not want to stoke community tensions.
Okay, Catherine Forster, thank you very much indeed. Now, a Liverpool City Council spokesperson has told GB News this: we will continue to provide clear, evidence-based communication as part of our wider work on community safety, cohesion and equality. Now, let's cross live now to the House of Commons, where the Defence Secretary John Healey is providing a statement ahead of the PM's Cobra meeting.
But I am able to say that all UK personnel so far are fully accounted for. Mr. Speaker, Iran's attacks are widespread and destructive. And I can confirm to the House in the early hours of Friday morning, 2 Iranian missiles were launched in the direction of Diego Garcia, our joint UK and US base. One fell short of its target, the other was brought down short of its target. Neither got close to Diego Garcia. The UK was not required to take action, and normal operations continue. I totally condemn Iran's reckless attacks. Iran must stop. It must de-escalate. We want to see this war end now. Mr. Speaker, my priority as Defence Secretary is the protection of UK personnel, and I continue to keep the force protection across the region at the very highest levels. And those measures are reviewed daily by both the Chief of the Defence Staff and the Chief of Joint Operations to ensure that our personnel are as safe as possible. Mr. Speaker, we know, however, that Iran's aggression and intent reaches beyond the Middle East. So we continue to track the potential threats here at home. And over the last year, we've been boosting our defence, cyber defences, and tightening base security. And I want to thank the Military Police and Police Scotland for their quick work to arrest, then charge 2 individuals who approached the Clyde base last week and unsuccessfully attempted to enter. Mr. Speaker, in terms of our UK defensive operations in the region, since last January, weeks before this conflict started, we took significant steps to pre-position Typhoons, F-35s, counter-drones teams, radars and air defences in the region. And it was these advanced preparations that made a real difference and meant that from day one, we've been defending activity and mounting those actions to protect ourselves and protect our allies. And when Iran started hitting out, putting British people and British allies and service personnel at risk, I committed further resources to the region, including more fighter jets, helicopters and a warship. RAF and Navy pilots have now racked up nearly 900 flying hours in defence of Cyprus, Jordan, Bahrain, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. We have more jets in the region than at any time in the last 15 years. There are an extra 500 air defence personnel in Cyprus, and as more military capabilities are committed to the Eastern Mediterranean, we're working closely with the Republic of Cyprus to coordinate the contribution of allies, including the US, France and Greece, to reinforce the security of Cyprus. And I can confirm that HMS Dragon has arrived in the Eastern Mediterranean and tonight begins operational integration into Cyprus's defence alongside allies. More widely, UK Space Command is monitoring daily Iranian missile activity and provided early warning to our armed forces and to our allies operating across the region. Our military and our industry have a shared mission in the UK, and that is to step up support and to help defend Gulf partners during this conflict. So last week we brought together Gulf ambassadors and defence attachés with UK defence firms. And the MOD has now established Task Force Sabre with industry to support partners across the Middle East with rapid procurement. We will soon deploy lightweight multiple launchers to Bahrain, including with training, and we will be deploying Rapid Sentry to Kuwait. And Rapid Sentry is a battle-tested, ground-based air defence missile system that has already proved highly effective for UK forces taking down drones in the region. Turning to the Strait of Hormuz. Mr. Speaker, people and businesses are increasingly worried about the economic impact of this war, and the Prime Minister will chair a Cobra meeting later this afternoon to discuss the economic impact, which I will attend. because Iran is holding the Strait of Hormuz hostage by laying mines, targeting ships, including Red Ensign vessels, and putting lives in danger. This is complex, and any resolution requires close work with allies and multinational support. So the UK, along with 29 other nations, signed a joint statement late last week, which condemned in the strongest terms these attacks on unarmed ships, strongly backed the freedom of navigation, and expressed our readiness, I quote, to contribute to appropriate efforts to ensure safe passage through the strait. I discussed this with E5 defence ministers last week. We've now deployed UK military planners into US Central Command to develop options. We're looking to accelerate new UK mine hunting and drone technology. And on Friday, we confirmed that the current permission we've given for the US to use UK bases for defensive strikes against specific Iranian targets extends to their missile sites and capabilities that threaten the Strait of Hormuz. We are determined that the UK plays a leading role in securing the strait, so commercial ships can move freely and confidently again. Mr. Speaker, this House knows the demands on defence are rising, and while we rightly focus on dealing with the immediate conflict in the Middle East, we will continue to step up our support to Ukraine, to fulfil our NATO commitments, to sign vital defence contracts, and to deal with Putin's serious threats to the high north. Mr. Speaker, this House also knows that our adversaries will want us distracted and may try to take advantage of events in the Middle East for their own gain. We will not let them. And as a government, we remain determined to make Britain safer, more secure at home and strong abroad.
Show Secretary of State James Cartledge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I thank the Secretary of State for advance side of his statement and for the briefing I received from his officials this afternoon. But can I begin by joining the Secretary of State by putting on record my utter condemnation of the arson attack committed in Golders Green last night, and on behalf of the opposition I offer our sympathy to all affected and to the wider Jewish community. Can I also join the Secretary of State in expressing our condolences to the families of all Allied personnel who have lost their lives in the current conflict, and in thanking the police for preventing potentially serious nefarious activity at Faz Lane. Mr. Speaker, the potential economic ramifications for our constituents from Iran's aggressive closure of the Straits of Hormuz should concern us all. In that context, can the Defence Secretary tell the House what he understands to be the implications of the US President's latest remarks, specifically on deferring strikes on power plants? And can he also tell us what further naval capability he is intending to deploy to assist in securing the Straits of Hormuz? Mr. Speaker, it is extremely concerning that Iran fired long-range ballistic missiles at UK sovereign territory on Diego Garcia. Now, I'm grateful for his update, but why did it take so long for the government to confirm something that the whole world had been reporting on? And what action is he going to take to respond to those wholly unjustified attacks? Can he confirm if the potential firing range of this Iranian missile implies that it could reach well into Europe? Now, when it comes to our own air defence, it is very welcome that the RAF regiment has excelled in using rapid sentry procured under the previous government to intercept multiple drones, and we pay tribute to all our personnel in the region at this present moment. We also welcome the fact that this capability is now being deployed to support our allies in the region, and we hope that the air defence system he is sending to Bahrain will be in position as soon as possible. But we note reports that at least one of the Iranian missiles fired at Diego Garcia was intercepted by a US destroyer. Is it correct that the US intercepted this missile before the government decided on Saturday to grant the US further permission for use of our bases? Doesn't this once again underline Labour's extraordinary double standards, that until their latest U-turn, the government had been relying on the US to defend us whilst denying them the use of our bases? And given reports that the Iranian missile headed for Diego Garcia was intercepted by a US destroyer, this underlines the critical importance of our Type 45s when it comes to our own air defence. So whilst we welcome HMS Dragon finally arriving, does he regret not sending her much, much sooner? As he knows, the Type 45 Sea Viper air defence system relies on Aster missiles. Last week I wrote to him, urging him to use the HMT reserve funding for the Middle East operations to urgently procure missiles needed for the Middle East, including LMM for our Wildcat and Rapid Sentry, ASRAAM for our fighter jets, and Aster for the Type 45s. Since then, he's confirmed the order of LMM, which I welcome. Will he now use the reserve to order more air defence missiles for our ships and fighter planes? Of course, if our Type 45s are to intercept the most sophisticated ballistic missiles, they need the Sea Viper system upgraded to Sea Viper Evolution, which I have repeatedly asked ministers to accelerate, as it is currently scheduled to enter service in 2032. Now, when I was a Defence Minister, Mr. Speaker, HMS Diamond was under attack by the Houthis in the Red Sea, using expensive...
Okay, that's James Cartledge there, the Shadow Defence Minister, replying to John Healey, the Defence Minister, on the situation in the war in Iran ahead of the Prime Minister's Cobra meeting. We're thinking about an hour's time. Quite a lot came out of that, actually. John Healey there, for starters, saying, I can confirm that 2 missiles were launched towards Diego Garcia. One fell short, the other was taken down, but still fell well short. Went on to say he totally condemns the Ayatollah's war and we must de-escalate, whatever that means. We hear that all the time from them now, don't we? We heard also that RAF and Navy pilots have racked up 900 hours defending Cyprus and the region. And Catherine Forster, who joins me in the studio now, perhaps the most pertinent line to come out of that. HMS Dragon is finally in the area in the East Mediterranean, although it's not quite at Cyprus just yet.
Yes, so it will be 3 weeks tomorrow since the decision was made to deploy HMS Dragon. It then spent quite a few days in Portsmouth. So 3 weeks minus 1 day it's taken from the decision to send it to it arriving in the Eastern Mediterranean. Many would say that that was much too slow, but I think the general message from the Defence Secretary is they're trying to reassure people and say, look, we've got this. They're highlighting all the things that the UK government is doing, but real concerns, which I think the Shadow Defence Secretary, James Cartledge, mentioned. First of all, these very worrying attempted strikes on Diego Garcia, much further away than we ever thought Iran could potentially hit. Why were we not told about these at the time? Because it was initially reported, I think, by the United States. The government hadn't told us about this. And also, how safe are we in Europe? Because Israel is saying now that Iran could potentially hit London. The Prime Minister talking to the liaison committee, really trying to reassure us from what we're hearing. Even if they could, it might be that they could possibly hit a building, but still very, very worrying. And of course, our military is very stretched. We've got deployment to help in Ukraine and now in the Middle East. And, you know, we're not spending the money still.
I think you're entirely right, and we're expecting to hear from the Prime Minister. Thank you, Catherine Forster, at that emergency Cobra meeting, we believe, in about 1 hour's time. Well, what can they do to ease the cost of living crisis? Well, how about cutting fuel duty? Bearing in mind 60 pence in every pound goes straight to the Chancellor. You could help by doing that rather than blaming the retailers. We'll be across that Cobra meeting and more statements expected on the appalling situation in Golders Green, the arson attack on those Jewish ambulances. That's next here on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A cloudy afternoon to come for many of us. It's going to be mild overnight, particularly compared to recently, as rain and cloud moves in from the north and west. You can see this area of low pressure up to the north and west of the UK. That'll be pulling in these weather fronts, so rain is on the way, particularly for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland through this evening. Elsewhere, it should remain dry through much of this evening and much of the night, in fact, though the rain will creep in in to parts of northwestern England, parts of Wales as well by tomorrow morning. It's relatively light at first, but it will get heavier. As I said, with all that cloud moving in, it's going to be a mild start to the day on Tuesday. Plenty of clear skies across the far north and east of Scotland, but for most of us, it's going to be a cloudy start to the day. The winds will also strengthen from the west across parts of Scotland, bringing in some blustery showers of rain, hail and some hill snow. It is turning colder through the rest of this week, but still a mild start on Tuesday. Temperatures 10 or 11 degrees. Lots of cloud around, perhaps some mist and fog across eastern areas. That should clear quite quickly though by Tuesday morning. Now that rain across parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and northwestern England intensifies through Tuesday morning, so it will be a very damp afternoon across these areas, particularly areas to the west of the Pennines, the high ground in North Wales as well, seeing the heaviest rainfall. Some intense showers of hail and rain across northern areas of Scotland as well. Here it will be a much colder day, still relatively mild in the south and east, but very little sunshine. And that rain and those brisk winds sweep southeastwards through tomorrow evening, bringing a spell of very unsettled weather, in fact. And then it turns widely more unsettled, colder as well for a time, but it does look like the drier and brighter weather returns for the weekend.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the M8, a broken-down vehicle blocks the westbound off-slip at junction 28. A vehicle fire on the M621 westbound near Leeds closes one lane, causing delays until around 4:45 this afternoon. On the M5 northbound between junction 1 and the M6, a multi-vehicle crash has shut two lanes, with delays lasting into early evening. In Nottinghamshire, the A1 southbound between the A6075 and the A46 has one lane closed. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Cross Country report major disruption at Glasgow Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Everything you need to enjoy a super summer could be on us this year, as you could drive away with this very latest Benivan 4-berth campervan. This campervan is fully equipped with its own kitchen, bathroom, dinette and plenty of storage. We'll also get your summer sorted with a further £25,000 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. For another chance to win a campervan and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you and a happy Monday. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. We've got all the very latest and the greatest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. We've got a cracking show, and here's what's on today's menu. During today's show, in this next hour, Keir Starmer will later on today chair an emergency Cobra meeting on the war in Iran. But with Donald Trump calling all of the shots, is there any point? Will a strongly worded statement from the Foreign Secretary David Lammy really make a blind bit of difference? We'll be live from Downing Street. And counter-terror police are leading the investigation now into an anti-Semitic firebomb attack in Golders Green, which is feared to be orchestrated by Iran. Our man Mark White will be live from the scene. And Donald Trump has now cancelled his 48-hour deadline to bomb Iran's power networks, welcoming a 5-day window of calm in the Iran war.
We just spoke to Israel a little while ago. I think they'll be very happy. This will be peace for Israel, long-term peace, guaranteed peace.
And we're hoping to hear from Donald Trump as he lands within this next hour. And we've just heard the Defence Secretary John Healey confirming that HMS Dragon is now in the Eastern Mediterranean. But will it make it to Cyprus before the end of this war? And a Labour-led Liverpool City Council has been blasted by women's safety campaigners after its claim that blaming foreign cultures for violence against women and girls reinforces harmful stereotypes. Well, on today's show, I'll reveal exclusive data that poses the question, are anti-racists endangering British women? And this year's top 20 food delivery favourites have been released today, and it's bad news for traditional British grub like fish and chips. Today I'll speak to the owner of Britain's best chip shop and ask, is it time to ditch these bloomin' delivery apps and instead get yourself down to your local chippy and buy a British? Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. It's clear now to anybody watching that all the shots are being called in the Iran war by Donald Trump, who clearly feels abandoned, isolated and bruised at the fact that the United Kingdom and Keir Starmer didn't come to America's assistance earlier on. Nevertheless, this afternoon there'll be an emergency Cobra meeting, and we're expecting to hear from the Prime Minister saying he will do all he can to ease the cost of living crisis by leaning on petrol retailers. Well, as 60 pence of every pound at the petrol pumps is taken by the government, they could just cut fuel duty. No doubt they'll ask for a de-escalation from the Ayatollah, as if an Islamist lunatic is going to listen to an angry statement from David Lammy. Seriously, does this whole Iran war just pose the question, has now Britain become a sideline, an irrelevance in world power, as clearly Donald Trump holds all of the cards? But we'll be at that committee room meeting there of Cobra for full reaction throughout the rest of the show. We're expecting to hear from Donald Trump as well later in this hour on all of the latest. Get in touch, usual ways, gbnews.com/you'll say is the way to do so. Or scan that QR code on your screens now. But enough from me, here's your headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Martin, thank you. Good afternoon. Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 4:03. Donald Trump has postponed planned US strikes on Iranian power plants after what he calls very productive talks on ending the war. The US president says military action will be paused for 5 days, depending on progress in ongoing discussions aimed at a complete resolution of the conflict. But Iran claims Trump has backed down following its threats to target energy infrastructure across the region. Markets have reacted sharply, with oil prices falling by as much as 13% in what economists describe as an extraordinary shift. Keir Starmer is expected to hold a Cobra meeting on the economic impact of the war this evening. He's welcomed the talks between the two sides and has stressed the importance of a swift resolution to the conflict.
I welcome the talks reported between the US and Iran. And to be clear with the committee, we, the UK, were aware that was happening, and the immediate priority has to be a swift resolution of the conflict and delivering a negotiated agreement which puts tough conditions on Iran, particularly in relation to nuclear weapons.
Counter-terror police are now leading the investigation into an anti-Semitic arson attack in North London as a manhunt continues for 3 suspects. Detectives are analysing CCTV, which appears to show hooded figures pouring liquid over ambulances before setting them alight and fleeing the scene. The fleet belonged to a Jewish community service in Golders Green. Loud explosions were reported as oxygen gas cylinders ignited. Police are also examining an online claim of responsibility but can't yet verify it. The attack is being treated as a hate crime, though is not formally declared terror-related. Keir Starmer says anti-Semitism has no place in society.
This is a horrific anti-Semitic attack. And of course, my thoughts, I think all of our thoughts, will be with those in the vicinity, the residents who are understandably very concerned, a Jewish community across the country deeply concerned. I've already been in touch with community leaders this morning and will continue to do so during the day. But anti-Semitism has no place in our society, and it's really important that we all stand together at a moment like this.
The campaigner against anti-Semitism, Gideon Falter, says the government response is not enough.
Unfortunately, the Jewish community is not impressed anymore by politicians turning up and saying how we all stand together and the government's going to do everything in their power. We've now had successive governments tolerating everything from hate marches to hate preachers and doing absolutely nothing about it. The government has on its hands a situation in which the tolerant, decent Britain that we all thought we knew has turned into a Britain where people turn up in the dead of night and burn ambulances down to the ground. This was a community ambulance service dedicated to bringing life-saving help to people of all faiths and none, and this is what has happened to it.
In New York, a passenger plane has crashed into a fire engine, killing the pilot and co-pilot. The aircraft was carrying 76 people, and more than 40 of them have been taken to hospital. Some remain in a serious condition. The flight had arrived at New York's LaGuardia Airport shortly before the collision. The airport's now closed, with all flights cancelled until at least 6 p.m. UK time. And authorities are bracing for a surge in small boat crossings in the English Channel as calmer weather sets in. Nearly 600 migrants have arrived in the UK in the past 5 days, with more expected. The government is preparing to hand France a further £500 million to help tackle the crisis as ministers push for a tougher deal to stop more boats leaving the coast. Talks between the UK and France are entering a critical phase, with the current agreement due to expire next week. Those are your latest headlines. I'll be back in half an hour.
Thank you, Bethany, and thanks for your company this afternoon. Now, just under 1 hour's time, Keir Starmer will chair an emergency Cobra meeting amid the Iran war crisis. Now, this comes, of course, after he dodged whether Iran can hit Britain with missiles, as he pleaded for Donald Trump to once again de-escalate the war.
Carry out assessments all the time in order to keep us safe, and there's no assessment that we're being targeted in that way at all. But of course it's my job to ensure that British interests, British lives are always uppermost in my mind. Today we're looking at the economic impact, and I am asking for every lever that's available to the government to deal with the cost of living to be discussed at Cobra. Hence we've got the Bank of England and others there. But I want to make sure that when it comes to cost of living, we're doing everything we possibly can at a very difficult period like this.
Now, meanwhile, Donald Trump has declared a 5-day pause on the military strikes against Iran, after holding what he calls very good conversations about ending hostilities in the Middle East. Well, what does all of that mean? What does it mean for you, the great British taxpayer? And can we expect Keir Starmer to put a rabbit out of the hat at 5 p.m? Well, hope springs eternal. I'm joined in the studio now by GBNews' political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, a lot of people will be asking at TV, at home, at their TVs, what's the point of these Cobra meetings? What do they do? What actual power do they have? They can send all the strongly worded missives they like in the direction of the Ayatollah about de-escalation. It might make a blind bit of difference. They won't listen. They don't care. But they could do something about the cost of living. They could cut fuel duty and do something concrete for the British taxpayers. Will we get anything out of it, or will this Cobra meeting just be another fangless snake?
Well, it matters, the Cobra meeting. It's a meeting of Rachel Reeves, Ed Miliband, the Net Zero Secretary, Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, the PM chairs, and a surprise guest, Martin, the Governor of the Bank of England. He's not often seen anywhere near Downing Street, let alone in the Cobra room, the Cabinet Office briefing room A, from which normally the PM will direct the UK response to world events. They're doing that, the PM told us today, because he wants to lift the profile of this meeting, show people the government cares. I think it's also possibly because we are so in debt to the bond markets, the government's worried about spending money without reassuring the Bank of England, getting the word out into the city that the government is still good for paying its money back. And that's why we're seeing the Bank of England governor there. The meeting starts at 5 o'clock. It'll finish by 6 o'clock. I'm expecting a statement from the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, tomorrow in the House of Commons, updating people before the MPs retire for their Easter holiday on Thursday. On the table, energy security, the economic impact of the Iran crisis. But I've got to say, just checking the barrel price now of oil, Brent crude oil has sunk by 14% to under $100, $96 for a barrel, because of what Donald Trump's been saying in the past 3 hours. He's going to suspend fighting. They're now in some form of prolonged talks with the Iranian government. This could, I mean, let's hope it does. It could be over before it started, and that'd be such a relief. And just as, of course, our shipper HMS Dragon arrives in Cyprus, that confirmed by John Healey in the past hour.
Well, it's in the Eastern Mediterranean.
Okay.
It hasn't reached Cyprus yet. At this rate, it might get there before
Yes,
the
but
war's
they have
over.
a long range, so it might be that they can start performing activities to defend Cyprus from some distance away.
What about this business of the fact that 2 missiles confirmed by Mr. Healey in the Commons a short moment ago, 2 intercontinental ballistic missiles were fired by Tehran in the direction of Diego Garcia. Diego Garcia, of course, within the range of London in terms
Correct.
of... And initially the government tried to cover that up. Now it has accepted that 2 missiles were fired. Both fell short. But again, it sends out the message that the Ayatollah could extend his vision towards the continent.
So the word is, where they got that, the experts say maybe they had quite a lighter payload, which meant that the fuel on the back of that ICBM, the intercontinental ballistic missile, could go further. The government denies the cover-up claim from the Tories. There was an 18-hour gap between it happening and US media reporting it. The government says this. They say they don't routinely comment on these attacks. Fast-moving conflict. Information like this is highly classified. They confirmed when they could. But it's very important. We're making the point to Number 10 today. You've got to be clear and be straightforward about what's going on in this. If you don't trust us, we can't trust you.
OK, thank you very much, Chris. Hope stick with us now. Let's bring in my next guest now. Delighted to be joined by the business journalist, the excellent Ian King. Ian, it's always a pleasure to have your company. The Cobra meeting is about an hour away. Can we expect any comfort, any crumbs of comfort whatsoever for the beleaguered British taxpayer?
Well, I mean, I think Chris summed it up quite well. I can't really see in the immediate term what the government does. I mean, I think what we have to do really is carry on watching what Donald Trump says and hope that he can reach some sort of off-ramp in the jargon with the Iranians. I mean, just about every constituency that the president would want to keep happy right now would be crying out for him to end this situation with Iran, to de-escalate the crisis. And if that happens, I mean, Chris mentioned Brent crude, though, which is obviously pretty fundamental. It is actually back above $100 a barrel just now, but clearly it's still come off pretty substantially today on news or talks, hints from Trump that there is some sort of ceasefire in the main. Should point out, we haven't actually had any confirmation of that from the Iranians themselves yet, which is a pretty crucial point, I think. But if you get a reduction in UK government borrowing costs, and we've had that today, implied government borrowing costs, because you've seen a rally in UK government gilts, you've seen this sell-off in oil prices, all of that is going to be fairly positive news over coming weeks and months for the government, and would lessen the pressure on them to do anything in immediate short term.
Now, Ian King, nobody has a crystal ball, but of course the volatility in the market is bad news for anybody with stocks and shares at the moment, pension schemes and whatnot. Now, the volatility is the enemy of all markets. How long is a piece of string? This war at the moment, there's a 5-day pause, but I mean, it's so volatile. Some people I saw this morning are saying this could tumble us towards a global recession. I don't want to make everybody at home switch the TV off and go and walk the dog, but how bleak could things get? And should we just keep calm and carry on?
Yeah, I mean, you should. By the way, just to pick you up on that, Martin, professional traders love volatility. Volatility is when they make their money. When you see big spikes or big falls in an asset price, that's when the big money is made by a lot of people. You do really have to sort of grit your teeth and knuckle through this. Fortune favours the brave. I mean, there have been some, assuming this is all over relatively quickly, there will be some outstanding bargains to be had in equities just now. There have been some big sell-offs in some really high-quality stocks. So for anyone who does feel like taking the plunge, then it's not a bad time in which to do so. I think you just have to keep knuckling down. I mean, obviously, there are certain types of people. Anyone who's refixed. I mean, I saw a woman last week at an event who said, "Well, this is great for me. I'm just about to try and refix my mortgage." It's not great for people like that right now. And we should point out there are probably north of 500,000 households who this year will have to remortgage and who will be coming off fixed-term deals that were probably struck in sort of more advantageous terms than they're going to be able to refix now. And it's worth pointing out, Martin, by the way, literally dozens, hundreds of mortgage products have been taken off the market during all of this turmoil because lenders just don't want to be lending right now in this sort of time of volatility. So that's where volatility hurts people. People trying to refix on their mortgage. But yeah, you do have to kind of knuckle down. The problem is, as I say, if this carries on, there will be all sorts of ramifications, not for the good, not just oil and gas prices, but as we've been discussing, the cost of fertilizer will go up. That hits farmers right now, just at a time when they're sowing their crops for later on this year. It will feed through into higher animal feed prices. It will feed through into higher chemicals prices. 2/5 of all sulfur goes through the Straits of Hormuz, which is a product that's very, very key to a lot of chemical processes. So that will have implications for all sorts of manufacturers, for in building and the construction sector, all manner of things. So you do have to hope that this de-escalates very, very rapidly.
OK, Ian King, thank you for your expertise, as ever. Truly appreciated. And talking about that volatility, we've got some more breaking news for you now, and it's this. Iran has denied that talks with the United States after Donald Trump postponed strikes on Iranian power plants. Now, just repeat that. Iran has denied talks with the United States. So Donald Trump said around about 2 hours ago that he'd had talks, fruitful talks with Iran. Iran now saying that didn't happen. They're denying talks with the US after Donald Trump postponed strikes on Iranian power plants. And this comes after the US president, of course, said that they had a good and productive conversation. But a senior Iranian official said that the United States has requested a meeting with Iran's parliament speaker on Saturday. Total bedlam. This is Donald Trump telling us one thing, which momentarily calmed the markets. And now the Iranians saying that's not true. In fact, Donald Trump wants to talk to us first on Saturday. Chris Hope, cutting straight back to the fact, who's saying what, what's the truth, what happens next, and the markets momentarily calm. No doubt will be spooked again.
And that's why maybe the oil price ticked up above $100, as Ian King was saying there. This is deeply alarming. It shows that we don't really know a lot because we are an observer in this conflict. We're relying on messages on social media from Donald Trump, but clearly he is trying to push them into talks. They don't want to go into talks. It makes Donald Trump look weaker, frankly. The fact that Iran can say, no, Donald Trump, we're not talking. Clearly, Donald Trump wants a peace deal more than the Iranians. It makes him look weaker, not them.
This is it, and the markets are reacting to this in real time. Just taking a look here energy markets taking a tumble. American tech, which has momentarily bounced up upon reopening the markets about an hour and 40 minutes ago, now wobbling. We live in a time of total and utter volatility. And as you say, Chris Open, a statement goes out from Donald Trump, another one from the Iranians, all by social media. The world's economy is reacting with bedlam.
And this Cobra meeting could be very important now if they've got actual real-time views of what's happening in the Middle East. I should say what the PM will announce later is more teeth for the Competition and Markets Authority to try and ensure that businesses aren't taking money where they shouldn't and are offering best value to consumers. But frankly, whether it makes a lot of difference is remains to be seen, Martin.
OK, well, that meeting now around about 40 minutes away. We'll get to that, of course, as it happens. Now, let's get the opinion of the Green Party councillor, Martin Abrams, who joins me now on GB News. Martin, welcome to the show. You know, no doubt heard their latest breaking news. It's a situation of total volatility, total unpredictability for the markets, for Britain. But may I ask you, putting all that to one side, what's the Green Party's policy on the war in Iran? Is it an open borders deal with the Ayatollah?
Well, good afternoon, Martin. Pleasure to be on your show. Martin, let's be clear. The Green Party were the only political party to be fully opposed to this illegal war in Iraq. And that's because the British public is sick of illegal wars and countries led by the US going into places like Afghanistan, going into places like Iraq, going into places like Libya, going into Syria. The list is absolutely endless. We are basically living through forever wars. And at the moment, they seem to be led by Israel and the US. And let's be clear, these are wars of aggression. Okay, The attack on Iran was a war of aggression. It was an illegal war. You're not going to get me defending the regime in Iran, but in every legal aspect, that war was illegal, according to various UN charters. And we need to not forget, I know this is going to have huge economic impacts, but we need to not forget, Martin, the human impact of this, which is the lives that have been lost. The 185 Iranian schoolgirls that were bombed by US Tomahawk missiles, and the thousands of other Iranian civilians, and those civilians in other places like Israel and the surrounding Arab states.
Martin, of course,
it's a huge impact.
Martin, of course, nobody wants people to die in wars, and that school incident was abject and it's a tragedy. But I want to press you on the Green Party's position. We found out in Parliament around about an hour ago that the missiles from Tehran, from the Ayatollah, that were destined to Diego Garcia, could, if fired in a different direction, reach London, where you are now. How would the Green Party's position help you if they decided to do that? Oh, we're going to ask the Ayatollah to de-escalate. He won't listen to you, mate. He's a psychopath. Right,
Martin,
and if those same missiles could launch here, and the Green Party wants to get rid of our nuclear deterrent, the Green Party leaves Britain open to evisceration. Wake up and smell the coffee.
Martin, forgive me, but those claims about Diego Garcia sound ever so similar to the 45 minutes from devastation claims that we heard to justify the illegal war in Iraq. Okay, if
the
these
Defence
claims
Secretary just said the missiles were fired to Diego Garcia, which is a similar distance away from London. That's not fabricated.
If these claims are being made, then there needs to be proper scrutiny of these claims. We cannot rush into anything when it comes to something as serious as wars. There needs to be proper parliamentary scrutiny. There needs to be proper parliamentary debate and, a democratic vote on going to war, none of which has happened. And let me say this, okay? People have been praising Keir Starmer for not rushing into this war. But I think that's a bit of a mistruth. Keir Starmer has opened up all our military bases for the US to launch bombing raid after bombing raid, loading up 2,000-pound bombs from RAF Fairford and dropping them on civilians in Iraq. That is an illegal
Martin, stop
war.
talking over me, mate. This is a conversation. Let's have a little listen, OK? It's a two-way thing, especially on my show. Here's the point. We know all of that. Specifically answer my question. The Ayatollah decides to fire a missile in the direction of London. What does the Green Party do about it? Send him an email. Say, please don't do that, mate. And you've already got rid of our nuclear deterrent. What happens? We're totally wide open to annihilation.
Martin, there's only one country in that region that has nuclear weapons, and that's Israel. I'm more concerned about Israel launching tactical nuclear weapons.
But they're not going to fire in our direction, are they?
Than anything that...
what about the notion that it was a good idea? So, do you not believe that Iran had a nuclear bomb? Just like the weapons of mass destruction. No, let's not... That didn't happen, so there's nothing to worry about.
There is no evidence that Iran has got a nuclear weapon or even anywhere close to being capable to launching a nuclear weapon, okay? All evidence suggests that they haven't, okay? I tell you what will happen, though, probably after this conflict, they're going to rush to get one. This illegal war is going to mean that Iran is going to be absolutely scrambling to become a nuclear power.
But some say they already were. You clearly don't believe that, and you don't believe that Tehran would fire missiles towards Europe, even though clearly they are fundamental Islamist psychopaths, but you take them at their face value. Martin Abrams, a lot of people are going to watch this and think the Green Party are dangerous. Oh, I think we have to read on. Beg your pardon. Martin Abrams, I'm so sorry we've run out of time. Let's still to come. Counter-terror police are leading the investigation into a London anti-Semitic firebomb attack, which is feared to be orchestrated by Iran. And man, Mark White, we're live from the scene. This is GB News and we're Britain's #1 news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time. But I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 4:28 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. And let's return now to that shocking breaking news story from earlier on today. The counter-terror police are leading the investigation into an anti-Semitic firebomb attack feared to have been orchestrated by Iran. Well, our Home and Security editor, Mark White, joins us now from Golders Green. Mark, one of the most chilling moments in recent history for the Jewish community, but I've been speaking with people from the community, as have you, and I've got to say, they're just not surprised. They're shocked, but not surprised. There's a feeling almost of inevitability now about these grotesque attacks on the Jewish community.
And they're fed up as well, it has to be said. I was speaking to one man just about half an hour ago who came up to me, watches GB News. He just wanted to impart some information. He said that his family has been here in this part of London for hundreds of years, for generations. His grandfather proudly served in the Royal Navy, but he has now reached the point where he's so concerned about the way that society is turning that he thinks seriously about leaving the UK and heading off to Israel. And he's not the only one. I've heard that from other people within the Jewish community as well. They are the only part of our society that has to have security personnel guard them on their way to school, on their way to worship. There's no other sections of society that require that level of security, but that's because of the very real threat that they are under on a daily basis. We spoke a little earlier to Wes Streeting, the health secretary who was here, expressing his horror at what had happened here and promising that there would be new ambulances for this volunteer ambulance service, this charity that serves the whole community, by the way, not just the Jewish community. Let's listen to what he said.
Those responsible for this attack must know that the Jewish community will not face up to this hatred alone. The whole country will stand with them. And when we think about some of the recent anti-Semitic attacks we've seen in this country, now is a time for all decent-minded people to stand up, to speak up with one voice, that we will stand with the Jewish community here and across the country in confronting this vile anti-Semitism.
But we've had these emollient words from politicians throughout the day, and I spoke as well to Gideon Falter from the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. He says it's time to end these repeated messages from politicians without actually backing it up with real action, such as cutting down on the hate marches that spew that vile anti-Semitism without, it seems, any police action taken against them. This is what Gideon Falter told us a little earlier.
Unfortunately, the Jewish community is not impressed anymore by politicians turning up and saying how we all stand together and the government's going to do everything in their power. We've now had successive governments tolerating everything from hate marches to hate preachers and doing absolutely nothing about it. The government has on its hands a situation in which the tolerant, decent Britain that we all thought we knew has turned into a Britain where people turn up in the dead of night and burn ambulances down to the ground. This was a community ambulance service dedicated to bringing life-saving help to people of all faiths and none, and this is what has happened to it.
And of course the ambulances here, they will be replaced. The government has said that it will provide money to replace those ambulances. But in what happened here last night, it's something that deeply damages once again this community that suffered so much in recent years, not just since October 7th, well before that, but certainly since October 7th, the number of anti-Semitic incidents has absolutely rocketed. And people here, they're just thoroughly fed up of it. They want the government to do something more meaningful, and at the moment, it really doesn't look as though there is anything in the way of concerted action.
Thank you, Mark White, for joining us there. Depressing, really, from Golders Green. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get back to the studio of some political reaction from Chris hopes. Keir Starmer saying, my thoughts are with the Jewish community. It's really important we all stand together. How many times have we heard we must all stand together? But I've got to say, Gideon Falter and people I spoke with earlier on the show are saying the same thing. Levi Shapiro, Jewish community leader in the area. Where's Sadiq Khan? Where is the Mayor of London? He's always saying we're united by our diversity. Where's Sadiq?
Well, he's not there. Early today at lunchtime, the PM hosted a meeting with Michael Uyghur, who is the chair of the British Board of Jewish Deputies, Keith Black from the Jewish Leadership Council. So he's done his bit to try and get them together. He is very busy today. He's got the Cobra meeting. He's got the liaison committee. He can't be everywhere. And his reception is also number 10 today. Sadiq Khan couldn't be there. He tells us, though, he's been in touch with the police and the Jewish security body too. And he also released a statement on social media. Here's what he told us.
Dark day for London. Jewish Londoners who volunteer to provide a service for all Londoners have been attacked for no other reason than because they are Jewish. This is an anti-Semitic hate crime, and it's really important for all of us to show allyship to the Jewish community.
OK, Sadiq Khan there saying he's showing allyship to the Jewish community, but he hasn't been able to attend the site where Mark White is in Golders Green today.
I think if this had been an attack on a mosque, Sadiq Khan would be there. Just my thoughts. I really do.
He may have reason not to be there, Martin.
He'd have found time in that busy diary. That's just my conjecture.
Yeah,
I think it's a terrible...
don't know that.
And that's just not just my opinion. You know, Levi Shapiro, you know, a lot of people there are saying, where is the Mayor of London showing solidarity with his presence on the ground?
He could be there later, only halfway through the day, we don't know.
Let's see. Thank you very much, Chris Hope. Now let's get to your headlines down. Here's Bethany Elsey.
Good afternoon. The headlines at 4:35. Counter-terror police are leading the investigation into an anti-Semitic arson attack in North London as a manhunt continues for 3 suspects. 4 vehicles were destroyed in Golders Green, with explosions reported as gas cylinders were ignited. The Prime Minister has called the attack deeply shocking.
Anti-Semitism has no place in our society, and it's really important that we all stand together at a moment like this.
The pilot and co-pilot of an Air Canada plane have been killed after it crashed into a fire engine on the runway at New York's LaGuardia Airport. Dozens of passengers were on board. Donald Trump says he's paused planned US strikes on Iranian power plants for 5 days after what he calls productive talks on ending the conflict. Iran claims he's backed down and denies direct talks took place. Meanwhile, fighting is intensifying across the region, with Israeli strikes reported in Tehran and missiles intercepted over Israel, Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Authorities are braced for a surge in small boat crossings in the English Channel as calmer weather sets in. Nearly 600 migrants have arrived in the UK in the past 5 days. You're up to date for now. I'll be back with more at 5 o'clock.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A cloudy afternoon to come for many of us. It's going to be mild overnight, particularly compared to recently, as rain and cloud moves in from the north and west. You can see this area of low pressure up to the north and west of the UK. That'll be pulling in these weather fronts, so rain is on the way, particularly for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland through this evening. Elsewhere, it should remain dry through much of this evening and much of the night, in fact, though the rain will creep in to parts of northwestern England, parts of Wales as well by tomorrow morning. It's relatively light at first, but it will get heavier. As I said, with all that cloud moving in, it's going to be a mild start to the day on Tuesday. Plenty of clear skies across the far north and east of Scotland, but for most of us, it's going to be a cloudy start to the day. The winds will also strengthen from the west across parts of Scotland, bringing in some blustery showers of rain, hail and some hill snow. It is turning colder through the rest of this week, but still a mild start on Tuesday. Temperatures 10 or 11 degrees. Lots of cloud around, perhaps perhaps some mist and fog across eastern areas. That should clear quite quickly, though, by Tuesday morning. Now, that rain across parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and northwestern England intensifies through Tuesday morning, so it will be a very damp afternoon across these areas, particularly areas to the west of the Pennines, the high ground in North Wales as well, seeing the heaviest rainfall. Some intense showers of hail and rain across northern areas of Scotland as well. Here it will be a much colder day, still relatively mild in the south and east, but very little sunshine. And that rain and those brisk winds sweep southeastwards through tomorrow evening, bringing a spell of very unsettled weather, in fact. And then it turns widely more unsettled, colder as well for a time, but it does look like the drier and brighter weather returns for the weekend.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the M8 westbound at junction 28 off Slip, a broken down vehicle is currently restricting traffic flow. Meanwhile, the M6 southbound between junction 19 and junction 18 has a lane blocked due to a stranded vehicle, anticipated to be cleared by 2:58 this afternoon. In Nottinghamshire, the A1 southbound between the A6075 and the A46 is experiencing delays from a crash with one lane shut, expected to ease by 5:20 this afternoon. Additionally, on the trains, both Avanti West Coast and cross-country services are reporting major disruption at Glasgow Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 5. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a lighter story here, because a London boozer has sparked a heated debate after banning children altogether from its pub, blaming what it calls a rise in entitled parents who fail to supervise their kids. Now, the landlord says that safety concerns and repeated incidents left him with no choice. Now, is this fair? Or is it going too far? Well, let's now speak with the pub landlord, and that's Rod Humphreys. Rod, welcome to the show. Let me, thank you, if I could, go first. I agree with this geezer. I think entitled parents who can't make their children act responsibly are the problem. Children are children. They'll run amok if you allow them. And I say that as a parent with children who spend a heck of a lot of time in pubs with my kids, but I kept my kids on a tight leash, and I think that's a problem. It's the parents, not the kids. What say you?
I agree, fundamentally. But I think anybody that behaves badly in a pub needs to be politely asked to leave. Yeah. And that's it, whether it's parents or anybody. I'm delighted to say at the Raven we have lots of children. We have an area where there are no children, and we have lots of rooms where there are lots of children. And the vast majority are extremely well behaved. And I think it's absolutely lovely to see children and babies and dogs and everybody in a pub. A pub is for everybody. But if anybody's badly behaved, they can go somewhere else.
And isn't that the point? You're the legend, need we point it out, that evicted Sir Keir Starmer from your pub when he came up to your juicer during COVID lockdown. So you know about kicking people out of pubs, Rod.
Sometimes evicting people is the best thing you can do. If you don't want them, it's my pub, and you behave by my rules, or no, not coming in.
Yeah, your pub, fair, your choice. And I come back to the situation again. My local pubs are festooned with kids charging around on benches, treating it like an adventure playground. It's not a kindergarten. It's a beer garden. Act responsibly, and actually want to bar the parents.
And my feeling is it's not good for the kids, because part of our duty as parents is to teach them to behave well in society. Going to a pub is an opportunity to do that, and to watch and be part of the adult world and learn how to behave. So I love having children in the pub with parents, and the vast majority are, in my experience, who bring their kids, and the family is functioning as a unit, and the children with the adults are taking their cue from the adults, and everybody's behaving well. It's a beautiful thing. But if that's not happening, it has to be dealt with.
I think you're exactly right. And, you know, when you go to like working class pubs, dare I say, the parents, they take care of their kids with a bit more of an old-fashioned approach. Sit down.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Stop messing around. And language I can't repeat. And that's the point. Whereas I observe a lot of middle-class parents who just let their kids wander around and roam freely as if everywhere that they roam is their entitled prairie. It's not.
You and I might agree that old-fashioned is somewhat the key, in that a lot of what we had, we are losing, and a lot of what we had, we need to reappreciate and value. And one of those things is self-discipline and bringing up children to be responsible adults. They deserve it. We deserve it. All the people around us deserve it. So
I think you're exactly right, Rod. And it's always an absolute pleasure to have your company. Rod Humphries, of course, the man who barred Sir Keir Starmer from his pub, The Raven. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now let's cross now live to Donald Trump. He's landed. He's speaking.
Aircraft, we knocked out everything, and we did it with fury, actually. As I announced earlier, based on preliminary conversations between the United States and Iran over the past 2 days, I've directed the Department of War to temporarily postpone planned strikes against major energy and electricity targets in Iran. They have very, very big, new, actually, and very expensive, billions of dollars it costs to build them. One missile, one of our powerful ones, and it comes down to the ground like it was made out of dust. But to determine whether a broader agreement can be reached, we've had very good discussions, very, very good discussions. And you have to understand, I know my whole life has been a negotiation, but with Iran, we've been negotiating for a long time. And this time, they mean business. And it's only because of the great job that our military did is the reason they mean business. They want to settle, and we're going to get it done, I hope. So hopefully this will be possible, but no matter what, we'll ensure that Iran never obtains a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon. They would have had one if we allowed the Obama deal to stand. That was the Iran nuclear deal, they called it. They would have had one. Marcia 3. Well, I tell you what, Martha, we would have nuclear weapons up there when, would you say, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or 4 years ago? We would have been in a position that nobody wants to be in. We won't allow ourselves to be in that position. Over the past 3 weeks, the United States military and our partners have been decimating Iran's military capabilities with overwhelming firepower, skill, lethality, and force, and we're destroying their ballistic missiles and drones programs with launchers down by more than 90%. We're hitting their launchers at a level that nobody even thought of before. 90%. They can't launch them, and they don't have very many of them, because most of them have been annihilated. But we've annihilated their defense industrial base, eliminating their Navy. We had 158 ships are down. I said to my people, why didn't you capture the ship? I said, were they good or not? They said, they were great, sir. So why didn't you capture it? We could have used them. They said, it's more fun to put them at the bottom of the sea. But they're not there anymore. So we eliminated their Navy, Pete, right? And that's gone. We eliminated their Air Force. We eliminated all of their air defense, everything. We eliminated everything there is to eliminate, and we eliminated them. We eliminated their leaders. We had the first set of leaders. They're gone. Then they met, 88 people met. And it's sad. I mean, it's sad they couldn't have made a deal. We could have made a deal with them a long time ago. Then the second set, 88 people met to pick a new leader, and they're now extinguished. And then they're meeting again, but now nobody wants to be the leader. It's one of the few political jobs that nobody wants anywhere in the world. Nobody wants it. It's a very dangerous job. My job is dangerous too, but their job is worse. In other words, we're systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America. They're not threatening us anymore. As Commander-in-Chief, it's my sacred responsibility to protect our country from all threats. For decades, Iran refused every opportunity to renounce its nuclear ambitions, and in recent months, its own negotiators bragged to our representatives about having enough material to make nuclear weapons. And that was supposed to deter me, but it didn't deter. It made me more anxious, and it just made it much more important. This mission that we're all on together was much more important, and we did it quicker. Iran's missile capabilities were also growing so fast that it would soon have become virtually impossible to stop them. Once they have a missile, once they have what they were building was incredible. And you got a little glimpse of it by the fact that when they came out, they started shooting all of their neighbors. Their neighbors weren't fighting with them. They were getting along okay with their neighbors. And I was surprised. They were everybody was surprised. And it actually worked in reverse because their neighbors then turned against them. Now Iran has one more opportunity to end its threats to America and our allies, and we hope they take it. Either way, America and the entire world will soon be much safer and will be a much more secure planet. In addition to all of this, we're working on so many different things. You know, our economy was fantastic. We had a Dow at 50,000. They say it couldn't happen in 4 years. It wouldn't happen during my term. But if I got anywhere close, it would be a great success. Well, in my first year, we hit 50,000. And with the S&P, they said, even more difficult. They said it would be impossible to hit 7,000 on the S&P. And we hit that in our first term. And then, unfortunately, I called Pete, I called General Kane, I called a lot of our great people. We have great people. And I said, let's talk. We got a problem in the Middle East. We have a country known as Iran that for 47 years has been just a purveyor of terror, and they're very close to having a nuclear weapon. We can keep going and get that 50,000 up to 55 and 60 is no end, or we can take a stop and make a little journey into the Middle East and eliminate a big problem. And Pete, I think you were the first one to speak up. And you said, let's do it, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon. So we are now having really good discussions. They started last night, a little bit, the night before that. And I think they're very good. They want peace. They've agreed they will not have a nuclear weapon, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll see. You have to get it done. But I would say there's a very good chance. And it began when I said that we were planning tomorrow on shooting down some of their power plants, and we're going to hold that up. Hopefully we won't have to do it, and hopefully we can make a deal that's good for all of us, including the Middle Eastern allies that have been very good to us, including Israel, that's been a great partner in this fight. They've really been a good partner in the fight. They fought hard. But we'll see what happens. I think there's a very good chance we're going to end up in a deal. And so we're giving it 5 days, and then we're going to see where that takes us. And I would say at the end of this period, I think it could very well end up being a very good deal for everybody. As good as if we went all the way and just literally annihilated the place, which if we don't have to do that, that would be a good thing, not a bad thing. In addition, after the appalling lines and massive disruptions at major airports nationwide last weekend, I am again demanding that Democrats in Congress immediately end their disgraceful shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security and restore the full funding for airport security and the TSA. They are holding it up because they want to take care of illegal immigrants coming into our country. They want to take care of criminals that are in sanctuary cities. They want to take care of transgender for everybody, literally the mutilization of our children, men in women's sports. But what they don't want to do is give us anything to do with citizenship for voting or voter ID. Can you imagine? We're the only country that doesn't do voter ID. Every country does voter ID. Brought to my attention today that we're the only country that does mail-in voting. Mail-in voting means mail-in cheating. I call it mail-in cheating. And we got to do something about it all, and it's part of Homeland Security. And I'm suggesting strongly to the Republican Party, don't make any deal on anything. The most important thing we can have is what's called the Save America Act. Don't make any deal on anything unless you include voter ID, and you have to be a citizen to vote. You have to show citizenship to vote. Very easy to do. It's very insulting when they say people can't do it because they don't know how to do it. Anybody that can't do it, I think it's a very insulting thing to say. The Democrats are fully to blame with the struggle of the great American public is going through at the airports. They're going through a big struggle right now, and we just put ICE in charge, and they're helping TSA, the agents, and they're working together so far very well. I actually suggested that in the airports they take off their masks, and they did that. In the airports, I'm a big believer in the mask because we have, Biden allowed hundreds of thousands of killers into our country. We're rapidly getting them out, by the way. But they would go after these people if they knew exactly who they were. But in the airports, it's different. I didn't love the look in the airport as you get off the plane. So I made a request and they agreed to it. So they're not going to be doing that. We would also bring out, if we don't have enough, we will bring out the National Guard and where we need it to help out at the airports. But we're not going to let this happen. It's extortion by the Democrats. They're holding up money that's already been approved, and now they're willing to go $5 billion reduction in ICE in order to get the approval on a deal that they approved, the great big beautiful deal, which is the biggest tax cut in history, the biggest regulation cut in history. They want to basically renegotiate a deal that they already approved, and they're doing it largely for a criminal element. So also the Democrats are putting our country at great risk during this period of time, a period that they call a war. They call it a war. We call it a...
And that's US President Donald Trump there speaking in Memphis, Tennessee. The top line out of that, repeating the earlier claim he made, we've had a very good negotiation with Iran, but completely and utterly contradictory news coming out of Iran. It's worth mentioning the Iranian Parliament Speaker, a man called Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, has said that no such conversation has taken place. And in fact, this is America spreading fake news to manipulate oil prices. Catherine Forster, senior political correspondent, joins me in the studio. Clear as mud.
Clear as mud is exactly what I'm thinking. I'd love to be able to tell you it all makes sense, but it really doesn't, because Donald Trump is, I think everyone can agree, a divisive figure. Some love him, some loathe him, but we can all agree that he is changeable. Just a couple of weeks ago, he said that the war was very complete. Then he said he didn't want our help, it was too late. Then he subsequently wanted everybody's help in the Strait of Hormuz. Then he said he was going to bomb Iran's energy facilities at midnight tonight. Now he's rowed back on that. He says they've been having good negotiations. But earlier, he was saying it's very difficult to know who to negotiate with in Iran because we've killed pretty much everybody, and the new supreme leader, we can't really get hold of. And then he's saying there's been good negotiations. It is deeply, deeply unclear.
Thank you, Catherine Forster. Stick with us, because coming up in this next hour, that emergency Cobra meeting expected. David Lammy, Keir Starmer, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves, they say they have all the levers of power at their disposal. Will they pull a rabbit out of the hat? The Cobra meeting is next here on GB News.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. In Blackburn with Darwin, all lanes on the M65 westbound entry slip at Junction 5 are closed for emergency barrier repairs. In Rotherham, the M18 northbound between the M1 and Junction 1 is shut for roadworks. Drivers in Nottinghamshire should expect delays on the M1 northbound between junctions 26 and 28, with 3 of 4 lanes affected. In Telford and Wrekin, the M54 westbound faces closures between junction 6 and 7 for repairs, leaving 1 lane open. Cambridgeshire's A14 eastbound between junctions 33 and 35 is undergoing horticultural work, with 1 lane closed. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's a prize package worth over £92,000. There's a totally tax-free £25,000 in cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like this year. Plus, you'll also get to drive away in a brand new Benevan 122 camper van. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this latest 2026 model comes fully loaded with everything you'd expect. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device, and as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
To warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car,
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. We've got the very latest and the greatest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. A cracking show awaits. Here's what's on your menu. Any moment now, Sir Keir Starmer will today chair an emergency Cobra meeting on the war in Iran, but with Donald Trump calling all the shots. Is there any point? Would a strongly worded statement from the Foreign Secretary David Lammy really make a blind bit of difference to the Ayatollah's thinking? Will they finally cut fuel duty? We'll be live from Downing Street. And Donald Trump has cancelled his 48-hour deadline to bomb Iran's power networks, welcoming a 5-day window of calm in the war in Iran. And that's despite Iran denying any talks are even happening.
What we just spoke to Israel a little while ago. I think they'll be very happy. This will be peace for Israel, long-term peace, guaranteed peace.
Meanwhile, early today, the Defence Secretary John Healey has confirmed that HMS Dragon is now finally in the eastern Mediterranean. But will it make it to Cyprus before this war ends? And counter-terror police are leading the investigation into an anti-Semitic firebomb attack in Golders Green, which is feared to be orchestrated by Iran. And our man Mark White will be live from the scene. And a Labour-led council in Liverpool has been blasted by women's safety campaigners after it's claimed that blaming foreign cultures for violence against women and girls reinforces harmful stereotypes. Well, on today's show, I'll exclusively reveal data that will pose the question: are anti-racists actually endangering British women? And this year's top 20 food delivery favourites have been released today, and it's bad news for traditional British grub like fish and chips. On today's show, I'll speak to the owner of Britain's best chip shop to tell him, is it time to ditch these delivery apps and instead back your great British chippy? Any moment now, the Cobra meeting will take place, but will the Cobra meeting have any fangs, or will it be more pointless posturing on the world stage? The cost of living crisis is biting. Fuel prices are rocketing. The government takes 60 pence in every pound at the pump in taxation. Instead of blaming the evil distribution networks, how about pulling those levers of power to Keir Starmer and cutting fuel duty? Motorists would welcome that. And will the Ayatollah actually listen to anything that our government says? Donald Trump is clearly in the driving seat, driving a hard bargain to try and end this war. Are these Cobra meetings about as fruitful as a Cobra meeting you have at a curry house with a few pints down your local curry house? Go to gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. Or scan the QR code on your screens now. But enough from me. Here's your headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Martin, thank you. Good evening. Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 5:03. Donald Trump has postponed planned US strikes on Iranian power plants after what he calls very productive talks on ending the war. The US president says military action will be paused for 5 days, depending on progress in ongoing discussions aimed at a complete resolution of the conflict. But Iran claims Donald Trump has backed down following its threats to target energy infrastructure across the region. Markets have reacted sharply, with oil prices falling by as much as 13% in what economists describe as an extraordinary shift. Sir Keir Starmer is currently holding an emergency Cobra meeting. He's welcomed the talks between the two sides and stressed the importance of a swift resolution to the conflict.
I welcome the talks reported between the US and Iran. And to be clear with the committee, we, the UK, were aware that was happening, and the immediate priority has to be a swift resolution of the conflict and delivering a negotiated agreement which puts tough conditions on Iran, particularly in relation to nuclear weapons.
Counter-terror police are now leading the investigation into an anti-Semitic arson attack in North London as a manhunt continues for 3 suspects. Detectives are analysing CCTV footage which appears to show hooded figures pouring liquid over ambulances before setting them alight and fleeing the scene. The fleet belonged to a Jewish community service in Golders Green. Loud explosions were reported as oxygen gas cylinders ignited. Police are also examining an online claim of responsibility but can't yet verify it. The attack is being treated as a hate crime, though it's not formally been declared terror-related. Sir Keir Starmer says anti-Semitism has no place in society.
This is a horrific anti-Semitic attack. And, of course, my thoughts, I think all of our thoughts, will be with those in the vicinity, the residents who are understandably very concerned, a Jewish community across the country deeply concerned. I've already been in touch with community leaders this morning and will continue to do so during the day. But anti-Semitism has no place in our society, and it's really important that we all stand together at a moment like this.
The campaigner against anti-Semitism, Gideon Falter, says the government response is not enough.
Unfortunately, the Jewish community is not impressed anymore by politicians turning up and saying how we all stand together and the government's going to do everything in their power. We've now had successive governments tolerating everything from hate marches to hate preachers and doing absolutely nothing about it. The government has on its hands a situation in which the tolerant, decent Britain that we all thought we knew has turned into a Britain where people turn up in the dead of night and burn ambulances down to the ground. This was a community ambulance service dedicated to bringing life-saving help to people of all faiths and none. And this is what has happened to it.
In New York, a passenger plane has crashed into a fire engine, killing the pilot and co-pilot. The aircraft was carrying 76 people, with more than 40 taken to hospital. Some remain in a serious condition. The flight had arrived at New York's LaGuardia Airport shortly before the collision. The airport is now closed, with all flights cancelled until around an hour's time, UK time. Authorities are bracing for a surge in small boat crossings in the English Channel as calmer weather sets in. Nearly 600 migrants have arrived in the UK in the past 5 days, with more expected. The government is preparing to hand France a further £500 million to help tackle the crisis, as ministers push for a tougher deal to stop more boats leaving the coast. Talks between the UK and France are entering a critical phase, with the current agreement due to expire next week. You're up to date. I'll be back with more in half an hour.
Thank you, Beth. Now, breaking news this past hour. Keir Starmer is chairing an emergency Cobra meeting amid the Iran war crisis. Now, this comes after he dodged whether Iran can hit Britain with missiles as he pleaded for Donald Trump to de-escalate the war. And meanwhile, Iran have denied holding any talks with the United States, despite Donald Trump claiming to have had very good conversations with Tehran. Well, we heard Donald Trump a short while ago in Memphis, Tennessee, doubling down on the notion that the talks are fruitful and productive. That's momentarily calmed the markets and precipitated a 14% downturn in oil prices. But what can we expect from this Cobra meeting that's happening right now in Downing Street? We'll find out in an hour's time, but I'm joined in the studio by GBNews' chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, welcome back to the studio. Sir Keir Starmer telling the nation earlier on he will use all of the levers at his power. What does that mean? Can we actually expect anything concrete from this meeting other than tough talking and bluster?
Well, the last time a government had to intervene on a major energy shock, of course, was Liz Truss, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine when energy prices went through the roof. That was hideously expensive. It's one of many reasons why the government is short of money and have put our taxes up considerably twice. So the government do not want to repeat that. But this afternoon's meeting is fundamentally some senior members of the cabinet, obviously the Prime Minister, but the Foreign Secretary, Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, and so on, and the Bank of England Governor, Andrew Bailey. And they are looking at specifically the economic impact of this war and contingency planning as to how they might support people if it continues, because we know that it is already very damaging and we've got no end in sight. From my understanding, the government is short of money. They are not keen on a sort of universal handout like Liz Truss did. The Chancellor, my understanding is keen on some sort of much more targeted intervention. So obviously at the moment we're protected by the energy price cap for a few months. But if necessary, we expect that they will announce support for households towards the bottom end who may struggle more. We don't yet know what it will cost. We don't know when it would kick in. But the thing is, there are so many unknowns because, as we've seen, we got up this morning thinking that America was potentially going to bomb Iran's energy facilities at midnight. Now they've been given a 5-day reprieve. Donald Trump is saying that negotiations are going very well with Iran, but Iran is saying there's no negotiations at all. So it's very hard for the government because there's so many moving parts. But clearly, they've got to work out what they will do if and when necessary.
OK, thank you, Catherine. We'll stick with us. I'd like to get to my next guest now. I'm delighted to be joined by the Labour MP for Rugby, and that's John Slinger. John, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. The nation awaits Sir Keir Starmer's Cobra. Not the pint of beer, but the meeting. Will anything come out of this that's going to release the torture, the burden upon the great British taxpayer, or can we expect just yet more hot air?
Well, not at all, actually, Martin. It's always a pleasure to be on the programme. I think what the public have seen from the Prime Minister is the kind of calm and collected leadership that the country needs at a very, very difficult time, both diplomatically, militarily, but also here on the home front, as it were, where it is absolutely vital that the government does everything it can to protect the British economy. And that's exactly what he and the Chancellor and other ministers have been doing. You'll have seen the work that was done last week on heating oil, £53 million for local authorities to help people with heating oil. You'll have seen the Chancellor and the Energy Secretary calling in the petrol retailers, also writing to the Competition and Markets Authority to make it very, very clear to them that they should use all the powers available to them to make sure that retailers are not ever looking to exploit what is obviously a very difficult and inflationary situation regarding the price of oil. So you've seen a lot of action already. The Chancellor's talking to the Bank of England daily. This Cobra meeting, I don't know whether it's concluded yet. I'm no clear on that.
Okay, John.
But I know that they're committed to.
John, if I may interject, the biggest profiteer of the crisis thus far has been you, the government. There's been an extra sort of £3 billion made in the surging price of oil, in equity that's been made from North Sea, extra fuel duty and corporation tax. You, the government, today could cut fuel duty to help people. You've made a stack of money out of this crisis so far. Instead of going for the retailers, who only turn about 6% of every pound at the pumps, how about if you pull the levers of pound? Don't say, oh, that's going to go as far as June. June's a heartbeat away. Do something tangible, do something concrete, cut fuel duty today.
Martin, the government, I think your viewers would understand that the government are absolutely not seeking to exploit this for financial benefit, not at all. In fact, they have taken measures, we have taken measures to make sure that petrol is cheaper over a long period of time. And we've suspended the increase on duty until September, which is being reviewed, as the Chancellor and the Prime Minister have said repeatedly. But I don't think it would be appropriate for the government to, at the click of a finger, immediately take such drastic action. What they've done is absolutely right. It's calm and it's collected and it's reasonable, and it's putting the interests of the British people squarely at the forefront of everyone's mind. And let's not forget, this is the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who very clearly did not involve the United Kingdom in the initial offensive actions against Iran, which have caused the economic destabilization and the inflationary situation that we're all suffering. And I think that they've taken a reasonable approach, and you can see from the number of meetings that they are having on a daily basis, almost, it seems to me, to make sure that they're using everything that they possibly can.
John, do you think that a psychopathic Islamic Ayatollah is going to listen to anything that comes out of this Cobra meeting today? I mean, be honest.
I think actually, Martin, that in some ways, I think you're not reading this quite as the reality is. So, of course, at the moment,
explain to me, enlighten me.
But okay, I will absolutely, Martin. Look, my view of it is, of course, the Iranian leadership are going to take more note of the statements of the two leading military forces that are taking part in these offensive attacks. So that's President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, obviously. But the British government, we are a major player on the world stage.
No, we're not.
Here we are.
We can't even get a single boat to Cyprus. What are you talking about?
That's not true. That's not true.
We've exposed our peripheral impotence in this entire affair from beginning to end.
It's a shame. It's a shame that you feel that, and I think
that's the reality. Really, are you in denial of it? Missiles were fired at Diego Garcia at the weekend. The government initially denied it.
The British government deployed military forces, reinforcements to the theatre. The Gulf states were reinforced. Our personnel went out there. Our brave airmen and women have been flying sorties. I've met the Arab ambassadors.
No one's got a problem with the brave servicemen and women. It's the politicians who don't do their job and deploy them sooner.
And just regarding, I think you're alluding to HMS Dragon, which was loaded with ammunition in a breakneck speed, far quicker than normal, and deployed. And frankly, we are a government that's investing significantly, a huge uplift in military spending. And I don't think that your viewers could think for a minute that the United Kingdom government, whether it's Labour, Conservative, or frankly any party, would not do whatever it takes to protect our interests and to protect our people.
I think people really do think that you aren't protecting our interests, and I really do think we can't even defend our own shores from an illegal invasion of dinghies. And at this rate, HMS Dragon will arrive after the war's over.
I don't think that's the case. I really don't, Martin. If you look at what we've done, we've reinforced our military bases. We have reinforced the base in Cyprus.
You couldn't even defend it from a drone attack.
And we are the government.
Now the Cypriot president wants us gone.
Martin, you may not like to hear this, but we are the government, Pat, which is increasing defence spending. I was at defence statements, and I regularly hear our ministers repeat that we are investing where it matters. We're investing in rearming, we're investing in our personnel, we're improving their accommodation, we're making sure they have the kit. It's going to take time, but it's this government, not the previous one, which has reversed a very unfortunate trend. And I do agree with you on this point. That trend where our armed forces were hollowed out, as the previous Conservative Defence Minister, Secretary Ben Wallace said, we must reverse that. We are reversing that. And it shows just how important it is that we have stronger armed forces and a stable economy, which I'm sure your viewers will appreciate too. Given how volatile the world is, we need a stable economy, a growing economy, which is what we're getting with this Labour government.
Yeah, OK. John Singer, we have to leave it there because I think many people watching this show at the moment think a stable economy is the stuff of dreams. We would love to have that. Labour MP for Rugby, John Singer, thank you very, very much indeed for joining us. Cheers, mate. I'm delighted now to be joined in the studio in Westminster by the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, Helen Whately. Helen, welcome to the studio. You were listening intently there to what one of your counterparts at the Labour Party was saying. And, of course, it's all your fault, Conservatives, for the current state of the British military.
Joe, I'm really frustrated to hear that from Labour, not least because I just so disappointed in the way that Keir Starmer has handled this conflict as our Prime Minister, that all he's done is dither and delay. All we've seen is him changing his mind. Could the US use our bases? Couldn't they? They couldn't, then they could. And then this huge delay to getting the HMS Dragon to leave and be out there to defend Cyprus. As you said, that means Cyprus is going, well, hold on, we're not going to want your bases here in future because you won't defend them. We put a naval base in Bahrain, and when we were in government, there were ships out there in Bahrain, destroyers, that could be defending places like the Strait of Hormuz. But under this government, no, they're not out there.
It's been an astonishing situation to learn at the weekend. We were told intercontinental ballistic missiles fired towards Diego Garcia. We were told at the weekend initially that didn't happen. We found out today it did happen. And in fact, the missiles mercifully fell short. One was intercepted, the other just ran out of steam. Nevertheless, it's within the same diameter of attack as here.
Yeah, I mean,
this studio, within the range of Tehran. Why is this government not taking that seriously and lending more muscle?
I mean, to me, the first thing that was shocking about this was it seemed to be covered up, that we weren't told that this had happened until the news kind of emerged. Well, this is something that Keir Starmer should have fronted up. I mean, she should have been doing a statement talking about it today about what happened and why. And as you say, it reveals that Iran has the capabilities to send missiles a really long way. We should be taking this very, very seriously. The idea, and as Keir Starmer does it, says, oh, well, no, we play no part in this. This is now all nothing to do with us, pretty much. I mean, the reality is we must defend our national interests and we must defend our own country.
Are you expecting a miracle, a rabbit to be pulled out of a hat from today's Cobra meeting that's happening right now that will greatly ease the pain on the British taxpayer?
Well, I mean, one of the problems that the government has is what they've done to the economy over the last 18 months or so since they've been in power, where they've just made the situation worse, that they've made the economy weaker. We've had sluggish growth, we've had higher inflation, we've got unemployment going up month after month. So they're not putting themselves in a good position to be able to support people. What they should actually be doing, and what they could do, and it's our plan, is they should be putting in place our cheap power plan, which would bring down the cost of energy, take some of those things like carbon taxes off the cost of people's bills. That would help households and businesses, crucially, get through this difficult time.
Helen Whately, we were saying there that surely they could just do something immediate and very easy to do things such as cut fuel duty. It would help people straight away, pounds and pence in their pocket.
One of the things that we've said, Kemi Badenoch's been out there last week saying that they shouldn't be putting up the fuel duty in the autumn. At the moment, petrol and diesel prices will go up in the autumn. That really shouldn't happen. People shouldn't be having to worry about those price increases then.
Helen Whately, you've got a fascinating solution to try and claw back a couple of billion quid. We all remember during the COVID lockdown, through necessity, face-to-face interviews were cancelled for disability payments. An incredible situation now. You can simply apply online and claim to be disabled. Nobody even checks.
Well, the government could save £2 billion by bringing back face-to-face assessments for PIP for those sickness benefits. Under this government, the welfare bill is completely out of control and it's only getting worse. So face-to-face assessments, before the pandemic, around 80% of assessments were face-to-face. Now they're right down about 5%. And the fact is, it's too easy to game the system when you're calling up over the phone to get your benefits. You can go onto TikTok and watch a video of how to claim benefits successfully. You can Google a VIP service that you can pay for to get an expert to help you fill in the forms. That simply isn't right. And also, it's not helping the people who really need help from the welfare system.
Kevin Baylock has always said that the budget was for benefits street. But do you think, as well-meaning as this plan is, and many people just find it incredibly astonishing to learn, you can say you're disabled online, nobody even checks, nobody even meets you. You take your word for it that you've got one leg or something, it's just crazy. But would it be a cold day in hell before this government clamps down on benefits?
Well, this government won't even talk about making savings. And we had the ridiculous situation last summer when they brought forward some savings and actually then pulled them from Parliament and ended up spending more money. And then what have they done this year? Well, they've lifted the two-child benefit cap, spending another £3 billion on benefits. That's £3 billion that could be much better spent, for instance, bringing down our deficit, or indeed, as we would, investing in defence.
Thank you very much for your expertise. Thanks for joining us today. It's the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Helen Wakely MP. Just had some live pictures there of Downing Street. The Cobra meeting is happening inside. They're due out of there around about 6 p.m. Can they put a rabbit out the hat and amaze us with a bit of cost saving, or will it be yet more hot air coming out of number 10? That's next. And also still to come, counter-terror police are leading the investigation into a London anti-Semitic firebomb attack, which is now feared to be orchestrated by Iran. We'll have all the latest. This is GB News, and we're Britain's #1 news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Welcome back. It's 5:27 already. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GBNews. Now let's return now to that incredibly moving, breaking news story, a shocking story. Counter-terror police are now leading the investigation into an anti-Semitic firebomb attack feared to have been orchestrated by Iran. Now I'm joined in the studio by GBNews' chief political correspondent, Catherine Fawcett. Catherine, a genuinely concerning and heartbreaking situation. I spoke with Levi Shapiro, a Jewish community leader, earlier on the show. The feeling on the ground in Golders Green, they're shocked, but they're not surprised. Sense almost of inevitability about this attack. Don't forget, in March 2024, Mike Freer, the parliamentarian for the Conservative Party for Golders Green, he left office after his office was firebombed. In July 2024, people with Palestinian flags drove through this area in Golders Green asking for Jewish women to be raped. You can see the scenes there, aerial footage of these burned out vehicles, ambulances that were led by a Jewish charity, helping not just Jewish community, but anybody in that area, targeted, specifically, firebombed, burned out. This is the aftermath. We understand an organisation that's Iranian-backed, claiming responsibility. They're called Harakat Ashab al-Yamin al-Islamiyah. Now, they've recently called, Catherine, for continental-wide attacks across Europe, in the Netherlands and elsewhere, targeted attacks on schools, on synagogues. Very, very much a feeling, Catherine, that the terror is amongst us, Jewish community feeling like they want to leave the nation. Quite a handful for politicians to be having to deal with. Nevertheless, they attempted. First, earlier on, I believe, Wes Streeting went to the scene.
Yes, shocking but not surprising, but so horrendous, these images, ambulances of all things to attack. And of course, we've seen a real rise in anti-Semitism following October the 7th and the war in Gaza, and now continuing again, influenced by events in the Middle East. So Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, spoke a bit earlier. Let's have a look first at what he had to say.
Those responsible for this attack must know that the Jewish community will not face up to this hatred alone. The whole country will stand with them. And when we think about some of the recent anti-Semitic attacks we've seen in this country, now is a time for all decent-minded people to stand up, to speak up with one voice, that we will stand with the Jewish community here and across the country in confronting this vile anti-Semitism.
So the Health Secretary there saying that the whole country stands with the Jewish community. Opposition leader Kemi Badenoch has also in the last hour or so been speaking to. Let's have a look at what she says now.
We need to make sure that we crack down on hate crime across the board. But it's quite clear that there is a particular problem with the rising attacks on Jewish people. There is an increase in the hatred of Jews. We saw that horrific attack in Heaton Park. I think that we need to do more than just telling Jewish people to have more security. I think it's appalling that I go to Jewish primary schools and they've got security guards standing outside. We need to root out this hatred from its source. It's coming from many places, a lot of misinformation, and even in some extreme cases, extreme Islamist groups, we see people bringing in attitudes that are not in line with how we tend to see equality across races.
So that is Kemi Badenoch there. The Prime Minister, of course, at lunchtime met with Jewish leaders in number 10 Downing Street. He's had a very busy day because then he was at the Liaison Committee and now in a Cobra meeting. Of course, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, the Labour Mayor, this has happened in Golders Green, a very heavily Jewish area of London. He has also been speaking. Let's have a look at what he has to say now.
Dark day for London. Jewish Londoners who volunteer to provide a service for all Londoners have been attacked for no other reason than because they are Jewish. This is an anti-Semitic hate crime, and it's really important for all of us to show allyship to the Jewish community.
and anti-Semitic hate crime. But the problem is we are seeing more and more of these instances. And for all that the government says we will send protection to synagogues and we want to schools and so on, you cannot have everywhere protected all of the time. It's just not possible. But we are now in an age where Jewish people increasingly do not feel safe in Britain.
Sadiq Khan there saying this is a cowardly attack. It is. It's an anti-Semitic attack. It is. I wonder, Catherine Forster, a lot of people contacting us are saying, why did Sadiq Khan not go to Golders Green and show his face publicly as West Streeting did? And am I being cynical, or are our viewers being cynical, when they say, I don't know, if a mosque had been attacked, Sadiq Khan would have cleared his diary and turned up? It just seems, I don't know, not quite mayor-like to have turned up to Golders Green and shown true solidarity by being there in person.
I don't have the answer of why he wasn't there. I think that his team would say he is the mayor of London, one of the most important capital cities on earth. He has a huge number of responsibilities. That is what I suspect that they would argue, but I can see that there will be people who think that perhaps he should have been there.
Keir Starmer also earlier on saying, my thoughts are with the Jewish community. It's really important we all stand together. We don't stand together, do we? These incidents clearly show there is a growing cancer with anti-Semitism. We don't stand together. No more thoughts and prayers, no more lessons learned. There needs to be a serious clampdown and sharpish before somebody gets killed again. Catherine Forster, thank you very much for joining us in the studio. Moving on now, there's lots more still to come between now and 6 p.m, including a Labour council that said it is wrong to claim that migrants come from cultures that don't respect women. Also, we're waiting for the full reaction from that Cobra meeting. First, though, here's your traffic and your travel update. Stick with us.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the M8, traffic is restricted eastbound at junction 23 due to a broken-down vehicle causing delays. On the M4 westbound, expect significant hold-ups from junction 23A at Mega to junction 26 at Malpas. In Stockton-on-Tees, the A19 southbound between the A1046 and the A66 has a lane closed for a stranded vehicle, with recovery expected by 6:15 this evening. Furthermore, on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Cross Country report major disruption at Glasgow Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon. The headlines from the GB newsroom. Donald Trump says he's paused planned US strikes on Iranian power plants for 5 days after what he calls productive talks on ending the conflict. Iran claims he's backed down and denies direct talks took place. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is chairing an emergency Cobra meeting on the war in the Middle East and its economic impact here in the UK. And the Defence Secretary has confirmed that warship HMS Dragon has arrived in the Eastern Mediterranean almost 3 weeks after its deployment was first announced. In other news, counter-terror police are leading the investigation into an anti-Semitic arson attack in North London as a manhunt continues for 3 suspects. 4 vehicles were destroyed in Golders Green, with explosions reported as gas cylinders ignited. And the pilot and co-pilot of an Air Canada plane have been killed after it crashed into a fire engine on the runway at New York's LaGuardia Airport. Dozens of passengers were on board. You're up to date for now. I'll be back with a full roundup at 6 o'clock.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A cloudy afternoon to come for many of us. It's going to be mild overnight, particularly compared to recently, as rain and cloud moves in from the north and west. You can see this area of low pressure up to the north and west of the UK. That'll be pulling in these weather fronts, so rain is on the way, particularly for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland through this evening. Elsewhere, it should remain dry through much of this evening and much of the night, in fact, though the rain will creep in to parts of northwestern England, parts of Wales as well by tomorrow morning. It's relatively light at first, but it will get heavier. As I said, with all that cloud moving in, it's going to be a mild start to the day on Tuesday. Plenty of clear skies across the far north and east of Scotland, but for most of us, it's going to be a cloudy start to the day. The winds will also strengthen from the west across parts of Scotland, bringing in some blustery showers of rain, hail and some hill snow. It is turning colder through the rest of this week, but still a mild start on Tuesday. Temperatures 10 or 11 degrees. Lots of cloud around, perhaps some mist and fog across eastern areas. That should clear quite quickly though by Tuesday morning. Now that rain across parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and northwestern England intensifies through Tuesday morning, so it will be a very damp afternoon across these areas, particularly areas to the west of the Pennines, the high ground in North Wales as well, seeing the heaviest rainfall. Some intense showers of hail and rain across northern areas of Scotland as well. Here it will be a much colder day, still relatively mild in the south and east, but very little sunshine. And that rain and those brisk winds sweep southeastwards through tomorrow evening, bringing a spell of very unsettled weather, in fact. And then it turns widely more unsettled, colder as well for a time, but it does look like the drier and brighter weather returns for the weekend.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's nudging 20 to 6 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a Labour-run Liverpool City Council has claimed it is wrong to claim that migrants come from cultures that don't respect women. And that's despite a Freedom of Information request from the Centre for Migration Control, exclusively seen by us here at GB News, revealed that's 1 in 5 registered sex offenders in Merseyside are foreign nationals. Now, that's double the average compared to the population as a whole, compared to the census. Now, of those nationalities, 27 sex offenders are Polish, 23 are Romanian, 15 Indian, and 9 are Afghanistani, Nigerian, Iraqi, Iranian, and Sri Lankan. Those are the facts, and the facts, I'm afraid, aren't racist, but they don't seem to be registering with Liverpool City Council. I wonder why not. Well, joining me now to discuss this is a senior lecturer in British politics at the University of Liverpool. That is my next guest here. That is David Jeffrey. David, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Facts aren't racist. Sometimes they can be uncomfortable. But why is it that Liverpool City Council seems to be in abject denial of reality?
I think it is a shame that they have decided to put out this type of information. I mean, like you say, the facts aren't racist. They're the facts. And if we're going to have a confident debate about immigration and arrivals to this country, it needs to be based on facts. And I think it's a way for Liverpool Labour to shore up their base before the local elections next year, because they know they're under threat from reform to the right, and they don't want to lose their base. So they're trying to play these tricks and divide the city.
You know, I think you might be right, and I find that deeply concerning, David, because nobody is saying that all foreigners are rapists. You have to be a moron to say that. But you'd also have to be a moron to deny that there is an increased propensity per capita to offend. It's just true. This is Merseyside Police's own data that we've seen. And surely the truth is what keeps people safe. If the truth is uncomfortable, then tough. Are councillors who put out guff, like there's no link between asylum seeker populations and increased levels of violence, and they're also saying that cultures that don't respect women have nothing to do with sex crimes, are they actually a bit of a problem?
Well, I think it is a problem, right? Because people in communities that are housing asylum migrant hotels do deserve to know the type of people who are living there. And there are studies from across Europe and across America that show that people from troubled places who come to other countries are more likely to commit crimes, often sexual crimes. And it's not just about the men who come and then are in the community. It's also about the migrant women as well. They're not necessarily safe from these people. And you're not if you want to build public consensus around immigration, like Labour do, you need to be honest with people, because we've seen time and time again of sexual offences committed by migrants. And if you pretend that isn't going to happen, people aren't just going to trust you. They're just not going to trust you. It's that simple.
And David Jeffrey, the Centre for Migration Control, they got this freedom of information request from Merseyside Police. They've done it actually for a huge number of police forces across the United Kingdom, and they've cross-tabulated them, and they've found uncomfortable truths again, that old chestnut, such as Afghan men are 22 times more likely per capita to sexually offend versus the indigenous British population. And this has been mirrored in other countries such as Denmark, Sweden, in fact, anywhere that's taken the time to do these kind of studies. Isn't the answer, David Jeffrey, rather than calling everybody racist who disagrees with this, let's do the studies. Let's see the data. If we're wrong, then we'll admit we're wrong.
You're completely right, Martin. This all starts with the government. Data based on nationality and country of origin needs to be included in crime statistics. It's that simple. We can't have mass migration into the UK without knowing the types of people and their backgrounds coming in. We can't make informed decisions about who should stay and who should go without that type of data. And then ultimately, when people are found to have committed these crimes, they should be deported. And we all know that they're not. And that's another issue as well. But you're never going to have a public consensus around migration without facts.
David Jeffrey, do you think part of the problem here is this, maybe it's a well-meaning notion, perhaps it's the fantasy, perhaps it's dangerous, that the minute you step foot on British soil or American soil or Danish soil, whatever it may be, you're instantly liberalised. You're instantly morally cleansed of the nation from whence thy came. Let's not forget, a couple of weeks ago, it emerged that domestic violence is all but legal in Afghanistan. You can beat your wife and your children so long as they don't bleed or you break their bones. That's legal. Why is it unreasonable to assume that men coming from that law come to Britain with values that aren't the same as our own?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that for many on the left, especially, and those who want to see more immigration, they find it difficult to hold two truths simultaneously. One is that people can be shaped by their background and cultures, which are often anti-Western, and also that people can have had a bad time in their life. So people can go through massive hardships. That doesn't make them good people or liberal people who share British values. Those two things can exist together, and I think it's dangerous really to ignore that truth, because not only does it not help them win their argument, but it's also dangerous for people here who just want to get on with life.
I think you're exactly right. Thank you for your time, David Jeffrey there. That's the senior lecturer in British politics at the University of Liverpool. Now, Liverpool City Council spokesperson said they were speaking specifically about asylum seekers rather than foreign nationals, adding, protecting women and girls remains a priority. We continue to work closely with partners, including Merseyside Police and specialist support services, to prevent abuse, support victims and ensure perpetrators are held to account. They continue. We will continue to provide clear, evidence-based communication as part of our wider work on community safety, cohesion and equality. I've got some breaking news for you now, and Cabinet ministers and officials, including Steve Reid, Darren Jones, the Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey, Pat McFadden, Ed Miliband and Jonathan Healey have arrived at Downing Street. You can see some of those pictures on your screen now. They've arrived at Downing Street for that emergency Cobra meeting to discuss the economic impact of the conflict in Iran. You can see the Bank of England Governor there arriving for those talks. We're hoping to hear from some news from inside that. That is Pat McFadden. There's the top brass of our government going inside for an emergency Cobra meeting. Will they pull a rabbit out of the hat? Will there be some blessed relief from that man there? Ed Miliband, the Net Zero Minister, going inside as we speak. This is GB News, and we're Britain's #1 news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the late edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, late edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Pork pies. They're widely regarded as a classic British snack dating back to the 18th century.
But Tesco's recent survey found that a third of youngsters have never tried the savoury treat.
Outrageous. So the retailer have now released a limited edition pork pie-inspired sandwich. Here it is here. We've got one procured to try it out. But the idea of this is to give the youngsters of today all the chance to enjoy this nostalgic British classic, even if it's not a real pork pie, but a sandwich that has been flavoured as such.
That's a load of processed meat flattened together, like a slice of it. There's a slither in there with a bit of cheese. We're joined now by the owners of Fuller's Butchers and Farm Shop, Steve Fuller and Lily Fuller. Welcome.
Basically, we make our own pork pies. We sell about 400 a week, and yeah, I mean, to me, I'd say they're becoming more popular. Actually, I mean, they're a great snack. You can take them on a picnic. You've got the nice crispy pastry and the nice juicy pork meat inside. So
now I can see you're holding up those pork pies. We have got pork pies flavoured sandwiches here. I wonder if it's time to do a bit of a taste test. Perhaps you could bite into your pork pie there in your farm shop. We'll have a bite of this Tesco sandwich and see how it all feels. It's not going to be great for the listeners on the radio, but here we go. I think they've captured the essence of one. This is an excellent I can't speak with my mouth full of sandwich.
You ate too much, that was where you went wrong.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 6 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Just a quick reminder that Cobra meeting is currently going on in Downing Street as we speak. Will we get anything meaningful coming out of it? We'll be staying tuned to keep you updated as that happens. But talking about Cobra, what about a curry to go with it? Because this year's top 20 food delivery favourites have been released today. And it's bad news, I'm afraid, for traditional British grub like the mighty fish and chips. But here's my point. How about ditching those delivery apps and instead hot-footing it down to your local chippy and supporting the great British chip shop? Well, who better to talk to than the owner of this year's winner of Takeaway of the Year at the National Fish and Chip Shop Awards. That's the owner of the Scrap Box in York, and it's Gavin Dessy. Gavin, welcome back to the show. It's an absolute delight to have you on again. The best chippy in Britain. It's official. I can't believe that people are saying that they'll prefer a margarita pizza or even chicken wings to the Great British Fish and Chip Shop. Gavin, surely we need to get people off apps, walk down the street, because they queue around the blocks getting your chippy, mate.
Absolutely, you're singing to the choir here. Yeah, I mean, I think for us it's so we specifically we don't do deliveries here. I mean, one, because of we don't really believe in them, but two, because of the location that we're at wouldn't suit us as well. But I think, yeah, I mean, delivery apps for us, there's two things I think reason why we've kind of fallen out of the top 20. One, they don't travel very well. I think the problem you have with these delivery apps is often they go to multiple kind of operators before delivering to your house. So sometimes it can be, 40 minutes, an hour before you've actually, from when we've cooked it to you actually receiving your food. And we all know that, fish and chips doesn't travel that well compared to something like a pizza or something like that. So it takes the control out of us as owners, and you're kind of then in the delivery app stands, which is terrible for us, which is, one thing we don't dislike.
I've got to say, Gavin, I love my missus to bits, but on Friday, it was almost divorce time. She ordered fish and chips from a takeaway, and it got delivered. And what happened is what you're describing perfectly. It was a car crash to me. It turned up, the batter was all soggy, all the steam had ruined it. Now, you're called the scrap box. Those batter bits were chewy. It doesn't travel well. You need to go to your chippy, order it in person, and leg it home as fast as you can, and get stuck in.
Well, absolutely. So many people here, they order it. We've got a few tables in here where they can sit in. A few people have it in their car. They'll, maybe drive to the park and have it there, especially in the summer. So it's a case of, once they've got it in their hands, it's up to them how they kind of want to take it. And that's where we want to be. I think the other big thing as well, that with delivery apps, you miss on that conversation. I think a massive thing with chippies is coming in, having a great conversation with whoever's behind the till, whoever's behind the fryer, and you really miss out on that rapport, which is massive for us.
And I've got to say, Gavin, you're bringing back the memories of my childhood now. The smell of vinegar and chips in the back of the car as my dad got the chips and drove us home. It's making me drool.
well, like
Well, Gavin Dessy, I know you agree with me. You've got the best chip shop in Britain, and there's also the only thing I'll say is they're not called scraps, they're called batter bits. But let's not start that argument. Thank you very much indeed, Gavin Dessy, for joining us on the show. My Know You Go and keep on frying. Well, next up is our own big fish. It's Michelle Dewberry. Jubes and Co. is up next, the Queen of Primetime Debate. Jubes, what's on your menu?
No, never mind that, Martin. You've just gone right down in my estimations. Batter bits? What on earth are you talking about? I've never heard anything so ridiculous in all my life. Everyone watching this will, I'm sure, agree with me that they are indeed scraps. No further debates required. But don't worry, because there'll be lots of debate on my programme in just a second. We will have the latest on that Cobra meeting, which is literally about to start now. Do you want more support from our government when it comes to rising costs? Should those assistances be targeted just at the lower earners or not? All of that and loads more in a sec.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. We've had the last of the sunshine for many of us today. Rain and showers moving in. It will turn colder for a time too, though the dry weather does return for the weekend. Why is it changing? Well, low pressure's moving in, pushing away the high pressure we've had, bringing that nice weather, and it will introduce weather fronts from the north and west. So it will turn more unsettled across northwestern areas through this evening. A spell of wet weather, some windy weather too. Elsewhere, further south and east, it should remain relatively dry, but cloud will thicken through the night. That does mean, though, it's going to be a mild night, much milder than it has been lately. Temperatures around 8 or 9 degrees to start the day, but more in the way of rain to come